flags outside. So we want everybody to update. So please, if you don't mind, you can quickly pick yours and write your name on it and stick it to your left hand side. Yeah, that's right. And then we're going to start. Praise God. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this afternoon. We worship you. We exalt you for today. We thank you for making this possible. We exalt your holy name. Be exalted in the mighty name of Jesus. We ask that you speak to us, that through this program we will acquire new knowledge, we will know new things, and that our eyes of understanding shall be opened and enlightened. Thank you, God, for in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Yeah, because of our time, I will quickly go into our role for today. A couple of things for us to know. Please obtain name tags. I have mine here, so please let all of us have name tags. That'll be good. The second thing is that the washrooms are here to your left. Is that? Yeah, which is my right. So the male and female. There is overflow parking at the back. Please let's not park at the bank or at the neighbor. So if you can't find any parking around, we have overflow parking, which is by the hospital. So you see the signs, the arrow that is pointing to that place there. So there are what's it called? Drinks. So again, right there you find some. If you need water, you need something to drink. So feel free to do that. I can't think of any other thing. And yeah, we have a couple of our speakers today. We have Jim Ip, we have Mr. Sam Over, and we have also Stephen. Stephen will be joining us in the next few minutes, by God's grace. I think that is all that I have for today. We'll quickly just tell us about why we are here, what it means to take charge, and basically why we're doing this. One of the things I've always understood is that no knowledge is wasted. That is number one. And the second thing also is that you need balance in everything you're doing. At times, some people are weighted in knowledge in one area and they are not in another area. And when knowledge is inadequate, we are prone to errors, we are prone to slavery. Proverbs 11:9 tells us that the righteous through knowledge shall be what? Shall be saved, shall be delivered. So he's even talking about the righteous man. And that God himself, when he was going to work in Genesis, he didn't start by doing other things. He started again by light. He said, let there be light, signifying knowledge. So I'm going to be bringing up our first speaker for today. He is the Director of Business Development with Freedom 55 Financial. He used to be in Hong Kong. One of the things I learned from Jim from our first meeting, he spoke to me about the bookstore. I think that was our first meeting. Yeah. I don't forget things. So, and he said to me, he said, and the lesson I learned from that word bookstore is about how management, how leadership commits to the wrong cause and decide to keep funding it or keep doing it even though they are not making the best out of it. So I think there was a case like that when when one of the jets was launched. I'm not remembering the exact case now. It's one of the cases in HR when they tell you about when they invested in designed a jet and the jet kept gulping their money, and instead of them changing the direction, they wouldn't. They kept pumping money into it. So that's a lesson I learned from that bookstore. Go sell the bookstore. So that is who Jim is. He used to be a stockbroker, as I said, and he's a 5-time award winner with Freedom 55 Financial as one of their best financial advisors. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together as we welcome Mr. Jim Ip.
Well, today's Saturday. Usually this time of the day, I will be spending my time with my family, right? But I feel so pleased that you guys can find me here and share some time with me. And well, first of all, you got to pardon my Chinglish, which is my Chinese English. Okay? If you got any in-depth questions, you can definitely ask me in Chinese. I can give you a better answer. Okay. Okay. First of all, as Budova mentioned, that I've been 5 times excellence in management with Freedom 59 Financial. The whole reason behind it, actually, I was on the stage of retirement at that point of time, and that was actually 55. That's my age at that point. I lost my Freedom 55 because of fellows like John, other associates. I really enjoy what I had been doing over the time. And then it's a coincidence that John brought asked me to the office to share some of my experience. And then now I got a chance to share with you what I think about financial planning. So people ask, do you really have a plan when you say Freedom 55 Financial? What do you think? You think you can all retire at 55? I lost my freedom. It looks like most of you should be able to do it. Because, most of them around. So you got lots of time to catch up. But anyway, to do financial planning, today I'm going to share with you some very basic points. So do bear with me if there's anything, questions later on, you can always check with me. So why don't we just go ahead? Okay, I just want to show you my first slide. So since each of you has a handout, maybe I should just go ahead, okay? If you look at the first slide, there's a little picture. We got two gentlemen. One is standing with the cup, saying help, and the other fellow is sitting inside a box that's holding a cup. And the guy standing out there, they say, "You're lucky you get to work from home." Okay? With this picture, what does that imply to you? What I see in there is actually both of them definitely are working. Why do they need to work? Well, they have to help. They ask for help. Probably they need some money. Okay? But the other guy standing up is jealous of the one that is inside his home. So no matter where we work, at home or go outside, we still have to work. Okay? But the other guy, we have better planning. He has a home, so when he rains, he gets shelter. And sometimes think about my line of work. John at times doesn't come into work because he likes to work at home. Why home? Home is very important. Anything we do within a home. Okay? We go to work. Majority of people will think about this. Well, people think that we're only in it for money. There's no money in work. How many of you really enjoy going to work? One, two. We got a few hands. I'm glad John raised his hand. That means I still got an associate next Monday. Yeah, the whole thing is we go to work, we try to earn our dollar, and then most of the time we think about what to use this our dollar. Okay? We go home, definitely we want to go home again, think about home again. We go home, we So for us to do financial planning, we have to understand how to use our money, where to put it, and how to put it. Okay? So some people in here, they just raise their hand, they enjoy what they're doing, they go to work. The reason behind it is not because of money. They spend their days doing something they are good at. Okay? Just like my line of work, I see that every day, whenever one of my associates bringing a client to talk to us and we manage to get their business, it's not because we make some money. Actually, we present our idea and come across a mission to help them to establish their financial plan. So then they can go home and sleep and don't worry about tomorrow. So money is very important. Definitely not the most important thing, but when you have no money and you don't manage it properly, definitely you need to have no future. And for myself, now I lost my 55. The whole reason behind it is I like to be looked up. I like to be recognized by the work that I have done for all my clients and also my new associate I do in our social media. When I first joined the directorship role, I was planning retirement. I talked to my boss. I said, "Well, Mike, that's it. I have to follow the path of freedom 55. I want to retire." Then Mike said, "Well, with your skill level and your client basis, how are you going to do it? You know, you're going to stay and share that with all the newcomers and you know, there's lots of potential in here because lately, if you happen to be in Edmonton, you notice there's lots of influx of Chinese immigrants into Canada, into Edmonton. So Chinese is a very affluent market, very potential market. So that's the reason I stay. And now financially, I can tell you because I follow my plan, I'm okay financially. But on here, I feel that, you know, every day I'm helping people to establish their goals. Most people do it is, according to statistics, all right? Only 65% of Canadian, they are net of financial planning. 65% of them, they don't do it, okay? But for those who have planned it, they will actually accumulate more than 245% more capital in their retirement plan compared to non-planners. Okay? Nobody ever plans to fail, but they fail to plan. And every day we actually try to transmit this message across the table by telling clients that, well, we have to do financial plan. Then they say, what is financial plan? Okay? They can talk about, yes, yeah, I'm going holiday next year. I'm going to go to maybe back home, okay? Say for myself, people will say, I will go home to Hong Kong and all this. During this trip, I will do this and do that. They spend lots of time thinking about it. But never thought about, well, in terms of what we do in terms of retirement, also some of the events, what we call uncontrollable event happen to our life, how to handle it. Okay. I don't usually use the PowerPoint, so you want to yeah, lots of people spend times in terms of thinking about, you know, going on holidays and trips, but never thought about, you know, anytime, you know, just like when we go on a trip, they would take out some travel insurance. They would take out some flight cancellation plan, just in case I got sick, I can go onto the trip. But when we come down to talk about financial planning, the first level we actually have to think about is life insurance. Because if you go on holidays, I don't know, I can't afford to go on 2 years. I can afford to go for 3 months, but I do take out travel insurance. Then what about the other time of my life? Okay, we go to a place for 3 months, then what about the rest of the year? The rest of the days? Okay, but people think, oh yeah, insurance is expensive, so things like that. So they are skeptical and they don't want to plan about it. And then we start talking to them about, well, perhaps we could sit down and show you how we operate. Then they said, oh, we have advisors that can help me making lots of return. For example, they showed me how to buy that particular stock and I can make 30% return. True, that's very good. But can they do it continuously every day? 30% return? If I were your advisor, I said, I can help you make 20% return a year. You think I will be standing here talking to you today? No. The reason why I'll be making so much money. You guys may have to pay me lots of money to help me to come to talk. Okay? It's easy to say, yes, I can make 20%. Because as I said earlier, I worked as a stockbroker. I went through the Asian financial crisis. I had days I can double my money. Even recently in the Asian market in China, from January to 5 weeks ago, 3 times. Some of the stock prices has gone up 3 times in about 6 months' time. But 2 weeks ago, things start changing. Many of them lost whatever they had been during the 5 or 6 months. So that is not financial planning. That is what we call investment management. Okay. So for financial planning, don't dwell on investment return. Don't ever look at whoever gentleman sitting in front of you saying, I can help you make money. First of all, we have to learn how to say, pay myself first, or pay yourself first. Okay? There's 2 circles on that. That's the first circle and first pay. They are the ones that spend their money first, then start saving, which happened to most of us. Okay? I went through those stages. We thought tomorrow we can still make lots of money, so today we spend it. Our credit card. What the heck, I'll buy this fancy watch for my girlfriend, which is now my wife. Use my credit card. Who cares? But end of the day, now I know there's a credit card which charge me interest. But what can I do? Okay. But people tend to cater to what they like, and all of a sudden they forgot what they really want to establish in their life. So I want to remind all of us around here, we try to save first. If we decide every time we put, every pay we got, we put aside 5 to 10%, then we start spending it, then I'm quite sure that one day you will have some saving for the future. So set your priority, okay? Change yourself a little bit. Now then come down to financial planning. We got to think about this 3 levels. One is short-term goal, medium-term goal, and long-term. What are short-term goals? Okay, usually is to pay off our debts, pay the bills, buy food on the table, children's education, and things like that. And then for the medium term, that is anywhere from 2 years and up, say for holidays, home purchase, or changing a new car, etc. For a longer period of time, we're looking at retirement. As I mentioned earlier, Freedom 55 again. If you want to retire early, we better plan ahead. So start planning sooner. Saying is easy, but the basic thing is, first of all, we have to understand ourselves. So on the next slide, we see that we have to understand our current situation. Okay, we don't know who we are, what stage of life we are in. We cannot plan ahead. So later on, I will give you some worksheets, that you like, you can fill it in. Just give you some guidelines of looking at what is your current situation. We look at what kind of assets you have currently. For example, if you have a home already, you want to develop the basement, blah 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 blah. And then you have a car, you have kids, and you have so much money in the bank. And from work, what kind of pension plan you have, and then in terms of retirement planning, do you have an RSP, and things like that. Okay, I will talk about it later on with the worksheet. Okay. So basically, current situation is found by calculation of the value of a client's assets and liability, as well as details of current income and expenses. If we know it, then we can assign the proper amount of your saving to the areas to achieve your goal. Okay, that is financial planning. And we urge all of us to start sooner. Okay, on this slide you can see that there is a case based on an assumption based on a client that is age 23 and he's planning to retire at age 65. His income earning is about $50,000 per year. Okay, we actually, first of all, we putting in some assumptions that there is no inflation, and this 50,000 is guaranteed, and no tax involved in it. And every year he's trying to save 10% of it, so that's $5,000 a year. If this $5,000 is going to earn 3% interest rate, and then he keep contributing this $5,000, by the time he reaches age 65, there will be a saving of $262,537. That's how much saving he will have. Okay, the day he retired, nobody will pay him. Then definitely we have our CPP, which is going to start at age 67. So then you have our full age security. But discount that, what we look at is from that point onwards, he will rely on his saving, which is the $262,513. Right? But according to most financial experts, they say, in order to maintain the same lifestyle, a person requires about 60% of their pre-retirement income. So we put an assumption to life expectancy to age 85. So whatever he save up, we need to provide for 20 years. So 60% of this $50,000 per year, he requires about $30,000 per year. So to provide this $30,000 per year, we calculated for the next 20 years, he need to initially to have a capital of $446,324, which is about $183,000 more compared to what he is saving. So does that mean this guy cannot retire? Right. Nowadays, we're looking at interest rate. Lately, we got another 0.25% reduction. 3% actually is pretty reasonable in a way, because we're not going to take you into a very high risk area to invest your money. So that means this young client, age 23, by saving up this 10% actually will not be sufficient to provide for his retirement. So how can we go by doing all that? Later on we'll address to it. And then we can look at this. So I hope most of you should have heard about what is an RSP. What we call is a registered retirement saving plan. Okay, this is a plan offered by the government to defer our tax. So anytime any growth in it, will be save up the principal, everything you save up, and to the day we withdraw it out, then you have to pay tax. We look at somebody as an investing age. What he does is he starts saving from age 25 to 45. So there's 20 years in there initially. Okay, he starts sooner. He put in $2,500 per year. So he keep doing this till age 65. So there's 40 years in there. Times $2,500 a year, so he put in about $100,000 invested. Compared to somebody that say, well, I'm going to go for vacation first, maybe I'll start a family first, I'll put aside my retirement plan until age 45. At that point of time, I will make more income than I can afford to put in $5,000 a year, which is higher in principal every month, every year. So he does it for 20 years. So it's $5,000 per year that is invested in. So it's $5,000 per year for 20 years. So again, he put in $100,000 total. Looking at the chart, you can tell that whoever start early at age 25 to 65, they keep putting this $2,500 with the tax shelter effect. He will save up to $247,000 compared to somebody start 20 years later, which put in the same amount of principal over time. He only can save up $154,000. So the message in here is, let's start soon. Okay. So when we have our money, what to do with it? This is what we call as investment priorities. Okay, we have different levels. Okay, we see that on the bottom levels we've got what we call protection. So anytime we do things, we have to protect ourselves. Okay, because we are the money-making machine. Okay, you think the government will take care of us? Yes, they do. Limited. Okay. But first of all, we have to consider of, why are we here? Why do we go to work? Why do we go and play and have holidays and worry about working? So we've got to start from ground zero. First of all, we've got to think about life insurance. And then each of us should have a will too. The importance of a will in Canada is, especially for some of us have families, if we die, what happened? We have a will. And both parents have, happen to pass away at the same time. The kid will be under the hand of a government officer. Would you like to do that? Do you know who that stranger is? So do some planning on that. Okay? On that we have critical illness. There's another issue. Health care in Canada or most part of the world. That's a problem. Right? Some days we have cancer, we want to get treatment right away. But due to facility wise, we may not be able to get it right away. So we may need to get some insurance to do that. Okay. Debt controls, okay. You can definitely control that. Don't overspend, as I said earlier. If you pay yourself first, then your debt level may become low because you don't have that much money to spend. Then you think about the importance of why we need to save up. That is for protection. Really, that is to control all those what we call uncontrollable events that could happen to us. Okay, what are uncontrollable events? That is, in terms, tomorrow we walk into the office, somebody give us an envelope, see you in 2 weeks' time. Oh, not 2 weeks' time. Because after 2 weeks, we will see you. Thank you very much. We may lose our job. Okay. An accident could happen. When you see a doctor, they say, well, because of illness, then you have to stay away from work. You got a cancer, heart attack, or whatever. So those things we cannot control. So that is the first level of financial planning. We have to take care of all these uncontrollable events before we move on. Because we got a place called home. We don't want our loved ones to be left alone and don't know what to do. Right? We are the one that bring them up. So that is the crucial thing. Then after we satisfy that, then we move up to saving and wealth accumulation. On there, I got lots of abbreviations on there. TFSA is called tax-free savings account. RRSP is the registered retirement saving plan. RESP is for children's education. Then move up, there's term deposit, Canada savings bonds, and furthermore with mutual funds and home ownership. Okay, those are risk-wise, it's a lot lower compared to whatever that is getting on the high levels. Okay, so once we achieve that, then we can move into buying stocks and bonds because we like to play security and also liquidity. Okay, many of these we can cash in quickly. As you go up, stocks and bonds, gold and jewelry, you know, just like price of gold, you know, 4 years ago we almost hit the ceiling, you know, always keep going up. But today they keep going down. Especially it's going to go to $1,000 an ounce. So should we be investing right off into gold and all that? Wait, satisfy the saving and wealth accumulation stage before we move in. Then furthermore, buying antiques, arts, real estate, raw land, commodities. Then you make sure you have better money in the bank because the fluctuations in the value can change overnight. So really, what I'm trying to say is, as the risk increases, the return will be higher. But why don't we start off with somewhere that is low? Okay, we want to play secure first. Security is important. So that is basically I like to share with you, and then I have some worksheets. If they are in the handout. Okay. Okay. We have one called budget, the household income and expenses. That is somewhat like your income statement. Based on what, you know, if you have chance to fill it in, use it as a reference because, you know, some people may say, well, how do I go by setting up something like this? But this worksheet that I actually give it to the clients to work on it themselves so that they kind of aware of what position they are in. Okay, before they do any planning. So on there, you know, first of all, we talk about your employment income and then other incomes and also government allowances, everything like there in the first two column. Then we goes into household commitments, what we need to put in our TFSA, what we need to put into our non-registered saving contributions, life insurance, blah, 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 blah. And after that, you know, what are our debt commitments? Okay, are there any line of credit, credit card payment, student debt repayment, mortgage, etc. So if you take those numbers minus it, probably then you know how much money you have. If you don't have any money. But if you have planning, you can actually set aside the money first and start spending. Okay, and on the bottom, you know, there's you can get into more detail, then you can understand what is general expenditures. There's like grocery, household, clothing, childcare, personal care, and etc. And the healthcare with paramedical, dental, vision, medications, and all that. So there's different areas in there for you to reference to. So give you some guide how to complete this your so-called income statement. And then the other one is actually a simplified form, you know, so it's for you to understand yourself too, okay? But that is very simple form, the other one. So I hope you can use some of this to work out some numbers and look at yourself, what stage you are in. Then if you want some opinion how to prepare something for your future, me and Jonathan would definitely look forward to sit down with you. Not to worry about saying, oh, you guys are trying to earn my business. No, that's not what we are here for. We're just here to share some advice. Okay. And because our work is, as I said, I feel that it's a mission. I don't want people to misunderstand what we are doing every day. We're trying to steal your dollars. But we're looking at how to make the best use of your dollar to help you to accomplish your goals. Okay? So, summarize it, okay? Try to establish a clear goal, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and benchmark yourself. Are you on track to meet your goals? Develop a comprehensive financial plan. As I said, once we deal with the clients, once they provide some information like this, we try to work together with whatever they get from work, for example, pension plan, or some employee benefit program, what they entitled from work, together what they currently have, and also with tying in with the government plan too. Because one source of our income actually, should we become disabled or should we die, the government has some money for us. And then we'll tie in all this to do a comprehensive financial plan. And after that, you have to do constantly, because our income may change, our investment portfolio may not work as what we desire. Okay, we try to set up a plan. But sometimes plans do fail, but we don't plan on failing. So I hope this message will give you guys something to think about. Start sooner. Okay, there's no such thing as wait till tomorrow, because tomorrow we never know what happens tomorrow. This morning we look like we have a sunny day, but the moment arrives is rain, and now probably it's sunny again. That is life. Okay, just prepare for it. We all have some dreams and goals to achieve. If we can be part of it to help you, and provide you some advice, to look ahead, we will definitely try our very best to accomplish it for you. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think I am in a rush today, we'll do a Q&A later on. So thank you so much for your time again. And if you guys have some questions, can answer it and provide some answers.
Yeah, I think I have one, and based on the chart that you showed, was based on that somebody would live till age 85. I was reading a report recently, which is like life expectancy, that people are now living longer and outliving what they had put together or saved for their retirement. If that happens, how long, somebody like myself, I don't even know, how long do government coverages like all these CPPs, etc. go for? How long do they last for? Is this something that people can bank on, other than the RSPs, etc.?
Well, that's a good question. If I really have to answer for it. For CPP, one thing about it, okay? The year when I first started the business, that is back in 1985. They're already talking about CPP will be sufficient. Okay, but now it's 20, 50, 30 years. Well, actually, yes, what they have done is they delay the paying period. Okay, so that is some sign. What I'm looking at, if that's wrong, then we should stay at 65. But I think, there's so many issues in that. People's life tend to live longer nowadays. So I see some words in there, but the government every now and then they do close monitor on it. So what they can do, they will increase the amount of contribution that we make. Okay, that's one area they can do. And the other one is now they even delay it. Say, for example, if you take early retirement, the penalty will be higher. So they kind of delay it a little. So I will see, in the next probably 30 years or so, I think the plan definitely will be safe. I don't think it will go belly down or bankruptcy. But the thing is, why don't we prepare ourselves? Because there's something we can control. Okay? If we just leave everything to the government, I think Canada is very nice to us already. I know I myself, I come from Hong Kong, and some of you may from Africa, from other part of the world. We don't have this kind of benefit. Okay? But we got the privilege to be in this country. Why don't we, and it's a free country, give us lots of opportunities. Look at it, take care of ourselves. Okay? We don't come to Canada looking at CPP to take care of you. Okay? So don't bang on it that much. Okay? If we work on it, I think we all can do well. We don't have to rely on it because the amount they give to us is very minimal. So maximum CPD you get out is less than $1,000 a year, right? A month right now. What can you do with $1,000 realistically? Okay? So don't count on that. Okay? That answers your questions.
I would like to know what RESP stands for. I don't know what that stands for.
RDSP is called Registered Education Saving Plan. Okay? What they do is apply for parents when they want to save up for the kids. They will get a grant if they put in certain amount of money. They give you a percentage of guaranteed return on that. And the plan is with the intention for the children to attend university one day. Okay? There's a pros and cons in anything the government set up for us. For example, we put the money into an RVSP. We have the savings and growth in the plan over time. But how do we know our children will be in university one day? Nobody can guarantee it. Okay? We can all think about it, plan for that. Should they not attending university, what happens to the plan? The limitation is they will take back whatever they give to you as a grant. And then the money, either you have to go into an RSP, otherwise take it out with your money. It's strictly for children's education. And the money being used has to be, the kids has to be a full-time student in Canadian recognized institution. Okay? It can be in the States, it can be in China, so what they recognize the institution is a proper institution. I got one bad taste in my mouth is I got one of my clients that started one of these RVSP plan about 16 years ago. And the daughter recently went to Toronto for college for dental hygienist. She managed to get her designation within 1 year. The tuition is about $30,000. So she called me up, Jamie, can I get on my RDSP? I said, I'd love to give it to you. So I didn't know, I signed up all the forms, boom, sent it in. Then he came back and said, well, sorry, it is a private institution. We couldn't recognize your college. So there you go. Well, I would say, could be we were not trained properly. So some of these things, as I said, when you work with one of advisor or whoever else, we ask them some of those questions, see if they are aware of those consequences. Okay? As I mentioned earlier, there's no free ride. Okay? Canada, just like the RSP, the Registered Retirement Savings Plan. The day you put in, you got the tax deferral. The day you take it out, your principal plus the growth, everything will be subject to tax. So tax-free savings account, probably that is one account make sure you use it. Because this one account you can put money in and then take money out, and we invest the principal you take out over that time back into the fund. And you don't have to, any growth in this plan you are not subject to tax. So the tax-free savings account is important.
The recent discussion on income splitting that's been going on, and it's very political. I don't know if you can touch on that topic a little
Well,
bit.
That income splitting is come to the time when you retire. Okay? If you got income splitting, that means one spouse income can be split with the other, with his or her better half, so that the tax bracket will go from his or her level to a lower level. That's called income splitting. So you can use your pension and what your RSP, things like that. So that will be based on whoever that makes the high income, and then work into that plan is called income splitting. More questions?
So I have a question for so your company. Do they just show people how to manage their resources, or the company you work for?
But I couldn't
Oh,
get the
sorry.
question.
My question is, so the services that your company offer, is it to manage people's resources on how to retire early?
Yeah, first of all, how we do it is we definitely have to understand who you are. Okay? We don't just come with a plan and say this is the plan to do. You have to follow. What we'll do, we'll go through some questions and answers so that we know who you are, where's your income come from, how steady is your job, what are your plan. As I said, those are the guidelines. What kind of goals you have set up, and what is your past investment experience, okay? And we based on the risk tolerance too, because some people are really nervous when the market, just like if I bought some mutual funds, if the stock market come down, they get nervous, they call you, oh my God, I lost, the market is down 300 points, I got nervous. So, then we may have to put you to some portfolio to match to what your risk tolerance, your income level, and the duration of time that you want this investment, how long you want this money to be left in the plan. So we have to work all these numbers together. That is how we do management. Okay? We don't just base on, wow, I did that for prospect A, it's the same plan, I did give it to you. All the plans we do has to be custom designed fit to your purpose.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. So do you advise people where to invest?
Where to invest
Yes.
now in terms of the market? Well, that is a very general question, okay?
Yes.
If you're really looking at, based on my knowledge, okay, you say where to invest right now, probably I say, Canada, with what's going on, I mean, shy away a little bit from that. That doesn't mean it's bad. But again, think about if you do it for long-term purpose, probably it's a good time to buy. Okay? But I don't have a crystal ball. I go with a plan. As I said, I don't dream on investment return. Okay?
Yeah, I have a reason for asking that question. It's actually a premise to another question because I wanted to ask you with the current situation right now, with the way the Canadian US exchange is low right now, like Canadian is, I think the exchange is 1 to like 77 cents. So how does that affect investment right now?
Well, if we use it Canadian dollars, buying Canadian investments, it won't affect us. Unless you use Canadian dollars and buy US investment, that may make a difference. Because it's going to cost us more now to buy their investment, right? And then the day you want to come to settlement, for example, you say, I want to take my money back. What happens if the Canadian currency goes up? lose money right there. So that is what we call as a currency risk. So it's you have to prepare for that. Okay, if you're going to buy any foreign investment. Okay, share with you some of my experiences. I worked in Hong Kong back in 1992 as a stockbroker. Those times it cost me $5 Hong Kong dollars to exchange one Canadian dollars. Okay? 2 years ago, for me to buy one Canadian dollars is 80 Hong Kong dollars. So it's differences of 60%. So if I take my $5 and buy all Canadian and I exchange it back to Hong Kong dollars, I make 60%. But if I did that a few years back, I buy $8 to buy one Canadian. Now it's only $6 for one Canadian. I lost $2. So now you can see the power of currency. So when we invest in foreign content, we got to make sure why we do it. It has to be really long term. If you have an investment that has a fixed date to come due, don't do that much of it. Because we have no idea at that point of time. For example, you say, my son is going to university at age 18. Okay? Definitely he will attend university. Don't buy piles of those because we don't know what happened when he's age 17. Okay? You can lose lots of money in the exchange.
Thank you.
I've got a question also myself. My question is, I know Freedom 55, you have a lot of clients, right?
Yes.
Now, have you ever missed it somewhere? Have you ever get it wrong? And how did you overcome such situation with maybe any of your clients?
Well, personally speaking, I may be fortunate, or maybe I'm really smart. I don't know. Okay. I started back in 1985. Okay. My history was that I left the company in 1992. I was so frustrated with the company. Okay, because of the change of the investment cycle. Because those are the days back in the 80s. As far as insurance policy concerned, let's talk about this. Okay. Because investment company, we take the client's money when we invest it. It has to be very conservative. And people may not like it because actually we got a return on your insurance policy. Then there's some new product coming in, what we call as a universal life product. Okay, that's just a terminology, just a new product, put it this way. They are tied in what we call as a term policy plus an investment. So some brokers at those times, some company actually advertise a policy can be paid up in 3 years of time based on 18% return on the investment. If you take a look at today, how many companies can do that? 18% return. So based on the projections, so all those plans are actually a failure. But back in those days, 1992, Freedom 55, at that point of time we call it London Life. We don't have that type of product. And one of my clients happened to be my manager. He advertised in the newspaper, I lost 23 clients in a 1 month time. I took the blame. I thought it was Jim. What kind of company are you working with? How come I don't have this product to market to that? My credibility was down to this level. Before that happened, actually I was one of the top producers in the office. So I felt very disappointed, so I left the business, so I went to Hong Kong and became a stock. So I went through the Asian financial crisis, I did also stock exchange, blah, 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 blah. And I managed to survive from the Asian financial crisis, and it came in 1999 due to my family, some family business. I did not want to rejoin London Life or Freedom 55. So they called me back. They said, well, actually most of the clients are still with the company. Why don't you come back and take care care of that because they are Chinese clients. They want to listen to the Chinese. They don't want to talk to Canadian or English or whatever. So it doesn't matter. I came back in, then I started working with them. But then over the time being a stockbroker, I started understanding what's risk management. Then earlier I mentioned about investment management compared to financial planning is two different things. Okay? So we can make lots of money, but again we can lose lots of money. So if we tie all this in together, sometimes you think, wow, definitely it would be nice to make money. Yeah, you want the guy that can help you make money. But if the guy can help you make money, can help you manage the money, eventually you will lose money. So over the time, I came back and started working again, but I look at what we call is retention rate. My retention rate is about 100%. I haven't lost one client. Sometimes when I look at the records, yes, there's some downtimes, okay? Because when I came in 1990 to now, I came across, recent, 2 years back we have the subprime mortgage in the States, that affect me too. Because those are experiences we had never come across. When it first happened, I know the market is going to come down, but I look at Canada is Canada, US is US. But we didn't know how they set up this scam of subprime because all this, what we call junk bonds are tied into so many things. We are all affected. Okay? But we managed to survive through it because, if a client has time, if you're based on statistics, over 10 years of time when you buy as equities, what we call stock investment, the return is almost, you can say, project about 8 to 12%. If you buy bonds, it's only about 5%. GIC, maybe 3%. So if a client has time, then we can help them to get over some of the humps. Okay? Definitely we have other training and we have other resources, person in the office to help us out. Okay, so as I said, I don't know whether I'm lucky or I'm smart or my clients are lucky. I see lots of millionaires in my years. They started off as a dishwasher restaurant. Some of them they own apartment building with 30 units in there right now. 30 years of life. That's what I say. Start early. Don't procrastinate. Don't just spend all your holidays. Okay. Okay. So if there's not too many questions, I will. I'll do one more. Okay.
Sorry, that will be the last question because of our time, if you don't mind.
What kind of books on financing would you recommend?
Why don't you give me your email address? I'll send it to you.
Yeah, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I will do
Yeah.
that.
It's very simple. Actually, when you go onto the website, you search. There are tons of books. Okay.
I mean personally from you.
Personally, for me.
Yes, do you
maybe-
recommend books to your clients?
Yeah. Okay. I'll recommend you some books to read. That I can do that.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. So again, thank you so much for your time. I give you some basic. The time is an essence for everybody, and I got to go for another engagement. But as we said earlier, we got our name, and I got some business guy in the front, and my young associate Jonathan. He will be staying behind a little bit. If you need some questions or whatever, pass it on to him. I will definitely follow up with you. As I said, we're here, not here just to generate business. Don't take us wrong, okay? I'm here just to give you some basic idea of what to do. I hope you guys get some guideline and do better in the future. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jim. We're so happy having you around. Thank you so much. One of the things that I actually picked from this, I arrived to Canada 2003, and I was fortunate to meet somebody that gave me the right information. She was a financial advisor, and she just said to me, if you can have a cell phone, have a life insurance. that simple. And I went for it, and I haven't regretted it. Well, our next speaker, he was once a mayor at the city of Edmonton, where we are here. He was a 3-term mayor and also the former Minister of Health. That is Mr. Stephen Mandel. Let's put our hands together as I welcome Stephen. He told me he's going to be telling us about his experience, so feel free to ask him questions. When do you want them to ask you questions? When do you want us to ask you questions?
Oh, I won't speak too long. I'm not that smart.
All right, thank you so much, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Pastor. It was a very interesting presentation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and mostly about entrepreneurialism and I think what is makes.
So, if you don't mind me interrupting you, let's move to the middle, please, if you don't mind, so we all can be together. You can go ahead, sir.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here today. I don't do this anymore. I've kind of retired from public life, and I just have my goal in life is to play with my grandson. That's the most enjoyable part of every day, and I go play with him, and he tells me what to do, and it's a lot of fun. And some of you might be old enough to have grandchildren. Most of you in this room doesn't look like you are, but they're much better, much more fun than your children. You make them wild, then you go home. It's a lot of fun. But a little bit of myself. First of all, many people know me as the mayor of Edmonton or an MLA, but for the most part, I've spent 40 odd years in business for myself. Small business, an entrepreneur. And I'm a very, very, very big believer in entrepreneurship. I think it is the number one thing that makes this country strong. Mr. Ip was here before. He's an entrepreneur. I mean, he's going to try to help you and make your life better, but that doesn't change the fact that he has an entrepreneurial drive. His assistant is the same thing. And it's the desire within this country to have this independence, this ability to pursue your goals, your vision, that I think is the foundation of what makes this country great. And I can't emphasize enough the opportunities it's created for myself. I worked for 35 years before I went into politics. I retired, so when I went into politics, I didn't need to worry about the money. I didn't need to worry about a whole bunch of other things. My family was taken care of. But I can tell you, during those 35 years, 20 of them, or maybe even more, was many nights that we were having tough time making ends meet, getting food for my kids, putting money on credit cards. So we weren't able to save for retirement. And in my business, being a sole proprietorship, there was no pension. If I didn't save it, I didn't have it. So getting into business for yourself, being an entrepreneur, is a great, great opportunity, but it does have amazing risks. But I think that when people are passionate about what they do, they care greatly about the opportunities that it can create. Because I've made a fair amount of money, way more money than I would have if I would have worked for the government or if I'd have worked for someone else. But it took a lot of time, a lot of energy to do that. And so I can only encourage people that see opportunity in the business world to seek that. You know, you don't make as much to start out with, but what you gain in freedom, what you gain in opportunity, what you gain in success and self-confidence is really quite remarkable. And again, I believe that the foundation of sole proprietorship or entrepreneurship is the harder you work, it's hard to believe how much greater success you'll have. You know, to give you an example, my wife and I don't like to do yard work. I don't like to do it. I haven't done it in a number of years. It's something I don't enjoy. We contract it out. Some people come to our house, and they work darn hard to do that. They're a Filipino community. A Filipino group of guys. They've started their own business. They've gone from probably 3 houses to 10 houses to 500 houses. And they've started that business. It's a tough business. And they also remove snow, because I don't remove snow either. But it's their hard work that has made them successful. And I think that that example of new Canadians finding opportunities and niches in so many different areas creates this opportunity for everybody in our country to be successful. And you know, it's quite amazing. And as I was listening to Mr. Ip about planning for your future, about saving money, and if you were going to rely on the CPP and $1,000 a month when you're 65 years of age, you're in big trouble. Because if you look at what $1,000 today is versus 10 years ago versus 20 years ago versus 30 years from today, it won't be worth much at all, even though it might be indexed. So you got to rely on yourself. And there's a variety of roads you can go. You can become an employee with a company that creates a pension plan, which is a great way to go. If you get a job with the city of Edmonton, I mean, it's a great opportunity. You'll have a wonderful job. You'll never get rich, but at the end of the day, you'll have a wonderful pension. Or you can work with the provincial government or other government agencies or large companies. Or you can choose the route that, your first name is? Jonathan's trying, is a sole proprietorship. That's what you are, aren't you? If you don't, if you don't kill it, you don't eat it, correct? In business, that's what it's all about. If you're not successful, if you don't create the business opportunities, you're not going to make a living for your family. And so you do give up a lot of things. You give up some home life, you give up time with your family. I used to travel across the province all the time, and I don't remember as much of my children growing up as I do of my grandson growing up, because I was working 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Many nights I didn't sleep, but I was committed to being successful. At the end of the day, I was. That allowed me in 2001, actually 1996, I retired. And so it's hardly, it was 20 years ago that I retired. And I made enough money and for my family and myself, and we decided I was going to retire. And so what I did, something stupid, I did the cardinal mistake in business. I got involved with something I knew nothing about. So one of the most important things about business is get involved with things you know, and that you know the pitfalls and mistakes you're going to make. I bought a hockey team in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. And so I went down there. It was a lot of fun. I lost a ton of money. Fortunately, I didn't go broke. And I came back. And the lesson I learned from that more than anything else, and I should have learned, is stick to what you know. The most important thing, and I think in life, is if you're in business for yourself, is find a niche, find what you know. Do that better, expand those ideas. And as you improve, you can then look at other parts or aspects of that business to be successful. But if you decide to jump out, you all of a sudden you're a real estate salesman, and what you want to do next is become a restaurant owner. Guess how many restaurant owners who are real estate agents gone broke? Probably 98% of them. Stick to what you know. I think that's one of the most important things in business. That's number two is important, as I said earlier, hard work. It's amazing how much more success you'll have the harder you work. And I used to work 12, 13, 14 hours a day. So when I got into politics, working, from 14, 15 hours didn't bother me at all, because I'd already done it my whole life. But if you want to become a business person, you want to be successful, you want to go into business because you think it's an easier life, don't go. Find another job. Because it is an incredibly difficult road to hoe. It can be very rewarding, but it can be very frustrating. But the one thing you must learn is about hard work. Third thing I think is really important is understand your product and really love it. It's like coming to church. You enjoy coming to church. You feel good about coming to church. You get up on Sunday morning, you come to church, or you come to Bible classes. But the fact of the matter is, whatever you're going to do, you're going to do for a number of years. And try to find something that you enjoy. Doesn't mean that you're going to be president of General Motors. You're going to be somebody that has this fancy title. I mean, most of my friends worked for big companies, and they would travel first class in airplanes. I'd be in the back of the plane. They would go to fancy hotels. I'd stay at cheap hotels. I would drive where I had to go. They would fly, etc., etc. That doesn't matter. I enjoyed what I was doing. It was a lot of fun. And I told me what to do. No one told me what to do. Well, I shouldn't say that my wife did. She still does. Now my grandson does. Oh, such is life. But I can tell you, business is a lot of fun. I've spent 40 years in business. I just started a new business. What I know most about is real estate. And what I've found over the last 40 years, I've made a ton of money in real estate. And then I've made a decision to buy something stupid, like a hockey team, like a concrete business, like a restaurant, because I thought I was pretty smart. And guess what? Every single one of those, I blew my brains out. Every one I lost a ton of money. But then I went back into real estate, and I made a lot of money. So I mean, it just goes to show you the lesson of stick with what you know and become really good at that, and you'll be successful. It'll take time, but you'll be successful. So over those past 40 years, I've learned a multitude of lessons. And the biggest one, I think, is about you have to love getting up in the morning, go to work, and enjoy yourself. And if you don't do that, I mean, even though it's frustrating, it's aggravating, it's disappointing sometimes, but, you know, in the end of the day, you go home, you sit down, and you talk to your family, what have happened, you've enjoyed yourself. And I really believe in entrepreneurship and sole proprietorship and that ability to be your own boss. Not everybody can be that. You know, that's not the way the world turns. You know, if everybody was their own boss, I wouldn't be able to run my business today because I have 4 or 5 employees, about 10 employees. They're doing all the work. And they also tell me to stay away because I cause trouble when I go there, so I don't even go anymore to some of my businesses. Anyway, I really, in 2001, I came back from Arizona with my hockey team, and I decided I was going to run for city council. And again, I knew nothing about municipal politics. I had no interest in municipal politics. Like all people, I was worried about world peace, you know, world problems, not about what potholes were going to be fixed or not fixed. And I was lucky enough to win, and then I became mayor, did that for 9 years, and then I retired, and then I made a very small step into provincial politics, and last on May 5th, the people of Alberta made a decision to dump us and bring in some other people, which is good. I mean, that's what makes this country so great, that, you know, people make a decision, new government comes in, new ideas come in, and that's what makes the stability of this country so great. I remember I was at an event once, and an elderly Jamaican lady, it doesn't matter, she just happened to be Jamaican, it doesn't matter. She went back to Jamaica, she's Canadian, spent about 35 years, 40 years of her life here, and she wanted to go back to her family in Jamaica. And she went to Jamaica to move back, and she came back to Canada. And I said, why did you do that? She said, there was no institutional strength. You couldn't rely on somebody going to a government place and getting your driver's license. You couldn't go and do the things that you do in Canada through the political stability. And by changing of government, we were 43 years in government, and new government comes in, it's stable. The whole province keeps going. Now, some people might not like it, like myself, big deal. The fact that matters, we have a great, stable country and province. And if you're going to go into business, one thing you want more than anything else is know their stability. Know that tomorrow, someone's not going to come and knock on your door and say, wait a minute, you're out, I'm in. Or I don't like you, you're finished. And that's what makes this country so great. And I'm a huge believer in this democracy and in entrepreneurship. And it's just wonderful that our country and our province is changing so much over the last number of years. That the increase in population from 3 million to 4 million people is really a result of people coming from around the world to build a future for themselves in Canada. My grandfather came here in 1898 as a butcher, and he struggled for a long time, and then he did okay, not great. But what his foundation was that my mother and my aunt would have an education, and that education allowed them to have a better life. And just like people coming here from around the world, the first generation might not do as well, but the second generation, I guarantee you, will do way better. And the third generation will even better, because that's just how it works. And the first generation is the one that works the hardest, takes the greatest number of lumps. They're the ones that have the greatest number of problems, and they're the ones that aren't able to accomplish the things they dreamed about, but they've come to make a better life for their children. It's a second generation because they know they can search out education. They can become a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist, teacher, a whatever, a financial planner, work for companies, and then you create the next generation, third generation, become even more successful. So, you know, there's in Edmonton, there's a ton of organizations that are business oriented, and you can get hold of Chamber of Commerce. They can fit you into, if you have a particular interest in a specific business area. There's about 25 organizations that have different groups that you can meet with, and that you can talk about business opportunities, entrepreneurship. So there's Chamber of Commerce, Edmonton Economic Development is another one. There's a whole list of them if you can Google it, which is the way people seem to do things today. And they will open up doors for you to create opportunity for meeting people in a business environment so you can be successful. And what I'm noticing more and more is that people who are relocating here are finding new opportunities in business and creating their wealth for themselves. And I think that's very exciting. And, you know, this is an amazing country. Now we're going to have some tough times in the next little while. As Mr. Ip said, Alberta's going to go through some difficult challenges because we're an oil-based economy, and that economy is going to have its challenges. But you work hard, you'll be successful, and in the day you'll make a better life for your families. I'm not going to speak much longer because I also have to go someplace. It's my birthday dinner tonight, so it's not necessarily my birthday, but it's my birthday dinner tonight. At my age, I don't celebrate the bloody things anymore. Their age are the cute little ones. They celebrate it all the time. They want to celebrate, right? Happy birthdays. Anyway, I'd be glad to answer questions for a little while, for a few minutes. And if you have any, if you don't, I wish you all the best of luck. And Pastor Bob, thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. Okay, questions? You can even ask political questions if you want. Yes.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here. I'm a property accountant for an investment company. It's what led me to that industry is just a curiosity on how to develop my own business. And I studied accounting and graduated, and I just thought to myself, why don't you get hands-on experience? Been there and done that, and I'll just give you a brief of myself. What can you possibly, advise me, that's towards my ambition, should I say?
Sure. I think first of all, the most important characteristic in business is the B's, is accounting. If you don't know what's happening with the numbers, you cannot figure out whether you're making money or losing money. Today's world, one of the great problems of real estate, it's become very expensive. What I would do if I was your age, I would look to buy a house with a basement suite, and I would then convert that, have the basement suite and the main floor, rent them out. As a start, put as big a mortgage as you can because rates are down, and I think that's a good way to start. Then you take the revenue from that and you then put it into to another house. But it'll take a few years. It took me 25 years to amass my wealth. It wasn't overnight. So, but then you put yourself in a position to see, there's a 30-suite apartment that might become available, or a 10-suite apartment, or a 5-suite apartment that might become available. So I think it's really positioning yourself to invest in something that is within your financial capacity. And today's mortgage rates are so low. Now you have to have more money down if you're a landlord, but even if you moved in, if you had the main floor you lived in the basement, you rent it out, and then you move out of there, and then you get a second place. I think that's because real estate's become so expensive today. When I was 30 years ago, you could buy a piece of real estate for a fairly substantial one for $100,000. Today, you don't get anything for $100,000. So with that, I think it's a great way to start. The other one is looking at niche areas where there's opportunity, work you can do yourself. So, for example, as an accountant, you can put an ad in the paper to do bookkeeping for people on weekends, so that you can garner some extra money, so that you can then invest that into housing or into some form of investment. I'm not a big believer in the stock market. Every time I put money in there, I've lost it. But I'm a crappy investor, so I wouldn't take me as someone you'd want to invest. No, I have a financial advisor now, and they play with my money. But mostly, I believe in real estate, and it's hard. You can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. But don't underestimate a good advisor once you have some capital. But I know that I didn't save a penny for the first 20 years of business. So as much as wanting to invest in Jonathan's business, I had no money to do it. So as much as I said, gee, I'd like to invest in stocks, after I fed my family and paid my taxes, there wasn't a nickel left. So, matter of fact, many times there was just the credit cards I had to pay. So, but that's a one-way today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have been in Edmonton for a while, and I always have the belief that when there's a problem, there's going to be a solution. Over the years that I've been in Edmonton, I've noticed a couple of what I would say challenges based on the systems that are in there. For instance, I live in the southwest of Edmonton, and each time that I need to run my physical test or any medical test, I have to go to somewhere. The closest place is probably around Century Park. And for somebody like me living in Rutherford, coming to Century Park, I get to Century Park. The earliest they could answer me is probably 4 hours from the time I got there. So I realized, well, this is a problem. The solution is that we need something close by to our area, right? But after making some inquiries, I realized that the system is pretty much closed, in the sense that there is a particular, Australian, developer or company who is into Dynalife, and they closed it up in the sense that nobody can actually, even if you say you want to buy a franchise account, there's no opportunity. That's just an example of what I've seen over the years. And I began to wonder, how can somebody who is coming into a system like this break into such system? I mean, basically, I see an investor as somebody who can see opportunity and be able to grab the opportunity and make good use of it. So there are more. I just give you an example of Dynalife. But I'm just wondering, is there anywhere, like somebody who's a good investor or somebody who wants to create a solution out of a problem, be able to see opportunities like that? I mean, that might be a closed one that somebody like us who's a novice might not be able to go into. But there are some other petty ones that could be easily vendor into. But so I don't know. I mean, if by your experience you will know where somebody like you gets such information from.
Well, first of all, Dynalife has a contract with the provincial government to supply healthcare, to supply testing. The other company, Sonic, which is an Australian company, was the company that bid, and actually was a much better bid. Dynalife didn't do a whole bunch in their bid to get it, but that's not my problem anymore. But one of the challenges you face when you're dealing with the healthcare system in Canada, that it's a monopoly. It's run by the province and controlled by the doctors. And so if you're a doctor, then you have that capacity to build facilities, and you can then get your friends to rent them. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of how they can be successful. So if you do have some friends that are doctors or people that are within the business, you can meet with them to try to get about buying a piece of property and investing in it and building in Rutherford a medical facility. But it's difficult to do without having partners who are doctors, because they're the ones that control it. I mean, the one thing I found with the health minister is that it's a system that is really needs a lot of fixing, but people don't want to fix. So that's one area. I'm not sure, where there's a need, there should be a desire to fix it. And so it's a matter of supply and demand. And so if you find that there's a particular issue that is not being met in Rutherford, then the key doing it. You try to put some friends together and invest. Like, you don't have to be the only guy that owns it. You can find 50 friends or 30 friends, each putting in $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever the number is to get something going. I mean, that's something that the Indian community has been unbelievable at. They're quite remarkable of getting 10 and 15 people and 20 and 30 friends together, each putting in X number of dollars, whatever it happens to be, and they go buy something and they share the profits. I mean, that's just good business, because you can't. I mean, today you need a lot of money to do things. So if you get some friends, and it depends on the business. Some are, depends on how much money you need. But if it's a good idea, there's always places to find investors. There's lots of guys. Right now, people are getting, 1%, 2% in their, if they're lucky in their savings accounts, they wouldn't even get that, 0.5%. So people, there's a tremendous amount of money out there. And so I think if you come together with an idea, what I would suggest is maybe if you have some good ideas, go to Edmonton Economic Development, meet with those guys, and they'll help you. Or Startup Edmonton is another great group. There's a group of all young people. They're all under the age of 35, and they're more tech oriented. But if you look, there's a great number of them in the. I looked it up today because I haven't bothered. Oh, look up. There's Startup Edmonton. There's Edmonton Business Networking. There's the new Entrepreneurial Toastmasters Club, Business Information Sessions, Edmonton Business Book Club, Edmonton Inventors Group, Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of, if you just Google entrepreneurship, they'll give you a whole list of places. But that's the one thing that communities need to know, is you can collectively put your money together to invest. And instead of buying one house, you buy 5. And then one of the people then manage it. So, but that's all. That's what people. When my grandfather was growing up, that's what they did. There's 4 or 5 of them bought a building together. Now, the building was probably $25,000. Versus today, it would be $500,000 or $1 million. So. But that's why through your church, within the community, people getting together and trusting one another, you can be very successful. But it isn't going to happen by Thursday. It's going to take a few years. And if you look at the Indian community, they are an incredibly wealthy community because they've done that. That's partnership. I mean, that's normal in business, but they've done it. They've really done it to a T. I know I've got lots of friends in the Indian community, and they've done it, but they bought and I'll take 2% of it. You take 1%, 5%. You don't have a big piece, but a big piece, a little piece of a lot of things is good. So, other questions?
Yes, Mayor. My question has to do with finance as well. I just wanted to know, does the government provide grants for people that want to go into business? Grants, not loan, something like that.
There's a group called the Federal Business Development Bank. I went to them many years ago. But if you have an idea, they have ways in which they can support new business. Alberta used to have some, but it's the Federal Business Development Bank, FBDB. I think they've changed the name to the Industrial Development Bank or some other name. But if you Google FBDB or something like that, they have programs to support entrepreneurs. If you have a good business, a good idea, whatever it happens to be, they'll help you put a business plan together. They'll help you go to a bank. They'll lend you something, some of the money to start out with. So they're really a great organization. They help me a lot. I'm trying to think. I don't think that. The other one I would also call Edmonton Economic Development and see if they have some programs. I don't think they have any money, but they could help you. Like, there's a lot of people, if you have a good idea, who give you money. Like, money is the easiest thing, but if you got a good idea and you can meet with them, they'll believe in you, they'll help give you money. Because I got money sitting in the bank. What's it doing? Might as well spend it. It's inflation is eating it up. I'm getting nothing in return. So that's why things are selling at such a high cap rate. So, businesses used to sell for 10, 12%. Now they're selling for 5 and 6%. And it makes a big difference. A $1 million business at 5% is worth $5 million versus 10% is worth $1 million. A couple more questions.
You've referenced paying credit cards a few times today. Question, credit cards, do you think they should be avoided 100% or should they be used wisely? Because lots of people...
If you're talking about business now, we're not talking about going and loading your credit cards up with to go to the restaurants or the bar. For business, you're gonna have to take risk. That's the way it is. If you're gonna go into business and you're gonna say to yourself, well, gee, I'm gonna not do anything risky, you ain't gonna be successful. And so, when I was your age, maybe a little older, I owed probably $120 million. And we were paying interest rates that were unbelievable. I finally had to sell a bunch of stuff off because we couldn't maintain it. But the fact of the matter is you have to take risks. Being in business for yourself or being, even if you go with Jonathan and his team, it's a risk. They're not going to say to you, we're going to guarantee you, Stephen, you're going to get a guaranteed 6% return. They're going to say, we're going to invest for you, we'll do what we can for you, and we'll charge you a fee to do that, and at the end of the day, we hope you make money. But they're not going to guarantee you. Just like I have a stockbroker who sells and buys stocks. Makes money, I don't know, sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, but he doesn't take the risk I do. So in business, if you're in, I believe you're in business for yourself and it's you controlling it, not someone else, I think no debt is unlimited. Get as much debt as you can. It's cheap. If you're going to make 10% on your money, you're borrowing at 2%. It's pretty good. Like what happens today, a guy buys a piece of real estate for $1 million, and it generates $100,000 a year. So that means he's getting a 10% rate of return on if he paid cash for it. But if he borrows $800,000, I'm not saying I would do that at my age. I don't think it's good at my age to do those things. But at your age, if you borrowed $800,000, get 3%, now you're making way more than 10%. You're probably making about 18, 19% cash on cash. So debt today, because it's so cheap, is really a good thing to do. If I was your age, I'd put debt up to my eyeballs. I'd go and, I'm not saying you should do that. But I'm a very risky person, and I could sleep at night. Well, many nights I didn't sleep. I could sleep at night knowing that I could go broke the next day. Lots of days the bank would call me Thursday. You haven't got enough money for payroll on Friday, and I'm scrambling to raise money. I mean, it ain't easy. Don't think that being in business yourself is a picnic. Lots of aggravation, lots of problems. And the guy you hear, oh, he did so well, he made all this money. Well, lots of this. But today, debt's so cheap, it's a really, it's a good way to grow. Not for me, because I'm too old. I don't have any debt. I don't want any debt. I just want money. As much as I can get. Yes?
Yeah, I've got a question. You went into, diversified into a different business, and you said you lost some money. Apart from sticking with what you know, what else can you say you gained from the businesses that you lost?
Well, the most important thing is that you need to do the research before, and I'm not good at that, okay? I think if you're going to go into another business that's not your mainstream business, then do the research. Take the time to look into it. So, for example, if you want to get into a restaurant, okay, look at what the market would be. Look at the location. What's it going to cost to operate? Like, spend a lot of time understanding what that business is going to be. Because if you're a real estate agent, you're not going to know much about restaurants. So if you get into it, you better know what it's about. So I don't see you shouldn't. I think you better do a lot more research than I did. I'm in the hockey situation, I was swindled. I mean, a guy asked me to put $100,000 in, I did, and I didn't do my research. It was my fault. And then at the end of the day, there was nobody else had any money but me, so I'm funding this thing to the tune of a lot of money. And but that's neither here nor there. But I didn't do my research. Whenever I've lost money, it says, oh, geez, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, you don't know anything about a business, I guarantee you'll go broke if you go into it. Because it's really understanding the business and the pitfalls and mistakes you're going to make during the first initial period of a year or 15 months, they're the most risky. After that, you know, if you've been able to withstand that, you're okay. I've bought 3 or 4 restaurants, lost all the money in those restaurants. I thought, gee, how hard could that be? Now, I didn't run any of them either, so I just gave them money to lose. Anyway, any more questions? Oh, yes, the young woman. Young woman first, please.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
What do you think about having a convenience store with a gas station together? And the second one, I'm kind of into fashion, so I was thinking
I
like,
see.
if you go to China, for example, and have them do all the work, then you bring it here. Well, at the same time, I can do that same thing. But do you think? I think it's probably cheaper going to China and get it done than me doing it myself. But at the same time, I'm very meticulous with my stuff. So it's like, what do you think about that? Like,
Well, first of all, I've got some experience in the China thing. My son went to China and he got the manufacturing some pet products. Okay. The problem wasn't getting it manufactured in China and getting it done reasonably well and shipping it back here. The problem is you can't buy 5. You have to buy 15,000, 10,000. So where are you going to sell them? How are you going to sell them? That's the question you have to ask. To have one outlet out of your basement is pretty tough. So you have money to set a good retail outlet. Where's that retail outlet going to be? Can it be successful? Do you have the capital to manage it? All the questions you need to ask about basic business planning. So that's one big issue of getting things made in China, in tremendous volume. Number 2, the market that you're looking at, is it large enough, or is it a market you're going to try to penetrate through internet? How are you going to do that? What's your website going to look like? All those things that are incredibly significant. You're almost better off to start out with small, because if you start small, you grow. You start big, you go broke. So start small. Design some things, put them on the internet, or get a small store and retail it. You have to find out that business has to be mainstream. You find the niche, but mainstream means some form of niche that's large enough that people are going to say, "Gee, I like that." And from my opinion, it just starts small. Better to make it yourself. Maybe it won't make as much money, obviously, but gradually build your business up. So you start in the basement or your house, you start an internet, and gradually get a small store. It's just boom, and then maybe you find a small partner who thinks what you're doing is good, and they invest in what you're doing, and gradually. But don't look at it's going to happen. Start on Tuesday, end on Thursday. It's going to be, it's going to take several years, and you have to be able to stick to it. As far as convenience store and gas stations, yeah. I think I don't know why someone would have a convenience store without a gas station, but it just depends on. I've owned some of those. Those are not bad money makers. Today, gas. I think the margin on petroleum products is very substantial. So I was buying them before, it was like 10 or 12 cents a liter. Now I think it's more than that, because if you see where we're paying for wholesale for gas, it's $50 a barrel, and we're just paying over $1 a gallon for a liter. Something's not right in the system. One more question, and I got to go. And you get the last question.
Actually, I have 2 quick questions.
Sure, they're quick. I give them to you, kid.
All right. First question is, for an online business, do you need to register the company? Or is there any business regulation for online businesses?
I think that's one of the problems. There's not very many regulations in online things, but where you have to have the regulation for yourself with whether you want a corporation, whether you want a sole proprietorship, it's a partnership. So the structure under which you want to operate your business is what determines how you want to do it. But I don't think there's much on the internet. You've got to have a good website. It's got to be sexy, and you've got to be able to market it. So I don't think I don't believe there's any controls, but I'm not an expert.
Okay. And my second question is, from your real estate experience,
do you have any tips on how to find distressed properties?
I think it's like a friend of mine was a stockbroker. He was a stockbroker in Chicago, and he had a place on the stock exchange. And he said to me, he says, the guys in the stock exchange hear about it first. You hear about it second, or third, or fourth, or fifth. Real estate agents hear about distressed properties, or you're a player. So in other words, there's property out there. A guy knows that Steve Mandel has money. He wants to invest. He'll call. But you need to be a player. So you need to be a real estate agent. So you can see what's coming up. You can contact banks and what they have on sale, what's on distress. It's a full-time job. I mean, you just can't. No one's going to say, here's $1 million piece of property for $200,000, and look at that. It really is hard work, and you can make a lot of money. But you've got to go out and spend the time and the energy looking up and doing the kind of things that's necessary to search out who has that. So you need to make connections with banks. You need to have, if you don't want to be a real estate agent, who are the real estate agents who are playing in this? What brokers and financial brokers have an understanding of the marketplace? What businesses aren't doing very well right now? Where's some real estate that looks like it's in distress? What's been for sale for a long time? Those kinds of things. But again, it's like anything else. If you need to be able to react fairly quickly, not overreact, but fairly quickly. I don't know if it's any help or not, but it's not. None of these things are easy. That's like, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Just walk out your door and say, well, I'm going to buy that. And boom. Now, some guys, people I know who are incredibly wealthy, guys come to them all the time with deals because they can close on a deal they've known to do. So but I'm not in that area. I don't think anybody else in the room is. Can write a check for $2-3 million or 10 million or 20 million right off the bat. So people come to those guys. They don't come to me. Anyway, thank you all very much. Enjoy yourselves.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Let's put our hands together. And if you have more questions for him, he's going to be here tomorrow to answer more questions. And another thing I should quickly let us know is on our church website, we have some financial resources there now. We are equally updating that. We've got templates for business plans, certain sources that you can go to for businesses. So you can go there. I think the bank he was trying to talk about is probably BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada. There are some other sources that you can equally look for. You can look for angel investors. That are there. And one thing that he mentioned that is very key is the power of partnership. I think I've mentioned this several times to people here in this church that you can do a lot with partnership. You understand me? I can raise $1 million among just very few people. And I know how much that is going to cost me if I have to go to the bank to do. And so you need to understand that. And you don't have to get broke. That's the truth of the matter. You can do different things. There are a couple of things that will be rolling out shortly. The church is probably trying to set up some business groups also to oversee and think about things. And that's an accountant there. That's all. Entrepreneurship. I'm a very big campaigner of that. That's great. I hope you're getting blessed. Yeah, our next speaker, he's the president of Royal Architecture Institute of Canada. He's a father. He's a husband of one wife. And he's one of the highly sought after Canadian architects. One of the projects that Mr. Obo did actually is the South Side police station, right? Yeah, we did a training there when we were going through the community police training. And it's a very beautiful facility. I wouldn't spend much time. Please, let's put our hands together as I bring here Mr. Sam Obo.
Thank you, Pastor Bud. I know the evening has been spent a lot, so I'm just wondering how much time do I have now? 10 minutes? Then I can I can actually reduce my. Can you put that in presentation mode, please? Just click that. Yeah, thank you. So sorry. Just to keep me on time, I will probably have to just go through the script so that I'm disciplined about it. Okay, all right. So it's actually very familiar seeing familiar faces here. I think I probably know quite a number of people here, and also I feel at home. I can probably assume that 99%, no, I take that back. 95% of people here are from Africa or African origin, just like I am. So I can understand I have the same challenges, as you all, and I have the same kind of anxiety, the same kind of apprehension as everyone there. Just a little bit of background. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I have to use the microphone. I thought my voice is amplified enough. Anyway, just a little bit of background. I emigrated to Canada just about 11 years ago. So I think by all standard, when I look at a lot of my compatriots and a lot of my friends who have been in Canada, I will realize that I'm still very new. So even though 11 years is not that much, right, I still consider myself as someone that is still very new to Canada. However, I do believe in something. Rarely do I quote the Bible because I don't think that I'm a pastor, but there is one verse of the Bible that I do like a lot. It's Psalm 23, where it says, "The earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof." I actually like saying it in Yoruba language, more. "Ti Oluwa ni ilẹ̀ àti ẹ̀kún rẹ̀." So what it means for those that can understand Yoruba is that anywhere you are belongs to the Lord. You are here in Canada. The earth is the Lord. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. That's a mindset and a mentality that I hold dear to my heart, and I'll probably explain, further, later. So, my talk today, I just thought maybe to share some of the things that have shaped my life, and some of those things that have shaped my lives were things that I actually learned from architecture. By background, I trained as an architect. I studied architecture in Nigeria, and from Nigeria I worked in Botswana, in South Africa, in Canada, and coming to Canada I told myself that I would still like to become an architect because that's one of my passions. I have passion in that. So some of the things I'm going to be talking about here is, looking at what are those lessons, that shaped, my lives. There's a basketball coach called Bob Knight. Bob Knight's, very popular basketball coach, and he's often very fond of saying, a number of things. One thing he says is, the desire to succeed means nothing, without, the will or the desire to plan. And that's really very, very instrumental. If you do not prepare, it's difficult, for you to succeed, even though we all have the desire to succeed. So earlier in my architectural career, I definitely learned how to do cool plans, right? Because that's what, from a very rudimentary level, people know that architects do plans. And when they call plans, they're talking about blueprints. And because we do cool stuff that inspire and elate people, we have a way of attracting admirers and also people that jeer at us or people that criticize, architects. I mean, I always tease my medical doctor friend. I mean, Stephen Mendel was talking about doctors. Yes, they're very influential. I can tell you that what he was just talking about, knowing doctors in order to get into that, it's very true. But the only way I could get through to my doctor friends is always to tell them that the difference between an architect and a medical doctor is just very simple. When an architect makes a mistake, the mistake is there for his children or grandchildren to see. The only options he has is probably for him to plant a tree, and hopefully that the tree will grow enough to make sure that it hides it. But like we always say, when doctors make mistake, the mistake is buried. But we don't have that pleasure, to do that. Well, one of the things that I find quite gratifying, talking about Admiras and Jeras, right, was I still remember, when my son was 6 years old, Fego. Fego, felt that, architects, do a lot of cool stuff. And because we do cool stuff and creative things, that he sees, he got this admiration. But most times, I find that, my wife, who is a social worker by training, right, all of a sudden, is also a career, guardian, right, when it comes to the kids. So at the time that my son, talked about wanting to study architecture, right, at the first, my wife found it very irresistible to, to counsel my son. And she talks about how cool, stuff we do and all that. And I was really very excited hearing her saying all that. And I really found her comments quite gratifying until when she started talking about the downside of architecture, about the sleepless nights, the long hours, the thankless, time away from home. And she ended our counseling session with her by saying, do not go study architecture. You should go look at something else that can give you free time to spend time with your family. Of course, my son took that to heart. And, I still remember sometimes came back and said, yes, Mom, I think I know what I'm going to study. I want to become a rock star. And needless to say, my wife started begging him that I think architecture is a good profession for you to do. So, yeah. Through the work that we do, as architects, is it possible to kind of dim some of these lights if it's possible? Yeah. Through the work that we do as architects, we demonstrate a lifelong dedication and commitment to improving the quality of life of our community. If there's anything that an architect does, is to improve the quality of life, irrespective of what we do. And I'm not going to bore you, a lot with, all the fundamentals, of architecture. I think at some point in time, I can provide this presentation, the details, my speaking notes, for everyone, to read. But I'll just touch on the highlight because it's been a long day for a lot of people, here. So I'll just go straight into, the things, that I learned. I always say to myself, what kind of values, based on what architecture is all about, what kind of values can architecture possibly teach one in life? The first one I learned, is in order for you to excel in any endeavor that you do, you need to have the desire. You heard Stephen Mendel, you heard Mr. Heap talk about desire. Desire is really, really very, very important. And one of the things that I've learned is that the outcome, that we get in whatever we do, in terms of the quality of product that we produce, or in terms of the architectural, projects and things that we do within the city, the quality can be measured by how strong our desire to accomplish something is. You will never see an architectural design or an architectural building that is just there, just happen, just a given. No. the team or the people that are responsible for it, if they have a desire to do something very unique, something very impossible, you will see it, from it. Now, when I talk about, desire is, definitely wanting to make something happen, right? And, I wish I can stand here to tell you all that I was born with a silver spoon, and, coming to Canada was really very easy in terms of, how things, went. That would have been a very great story. And fortunately, I still think I have that kind of story. It all depends on, the perception that, people have in terms of what their experiences are. But one of the things that, one of the lessons that, I learned as an immigrant, to a country like Canada, which is actually a very, 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 very good country in terms of opportunity, is that always go to the right source to ask the right question. There are times that you're given the opportunity to ask questions, but not knowing what to ask, sometimes is an impediment to the outcome that you get. Very often, I'm sure you've all had the experience where you say, hey, I went to that place and they don't, do A, B, and C, or they don't give grants, or they don't do things, and someone else walks in there and comes out with something else. What that tells you is that the way you ask your question, or the person you ask your question to, is as important. So coming to Canada, I still remember, emigrating from, when I immigrated from Botswana, here, the first thing I did, just like Stephen Mandel says, well, you have to do your research. Very important. The first thing I did was to go into looking for people that I can ask questions about. What is it like, in your experience being an architect in a country like this, especially people from the diaspora, And the question I asked, maybe I framed the question wrongly, but the answers I were getting were not the kind of answers that I was looking for. Some of them were telling me that, no, you know what, we don't usually, you don't bother, this is a country, they don't take, black people, as architects. Or, I've heard someone told me how all the buildings that needed to be built, has been built. So why are you bothering yourself, and all that. So the truth is that I didn't, so I changed where I was asking the question of the people. So I went directly to the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada and asked the question. Now, look at it, this was about 11, 12 years ago. Little did I know that I'll become the president of this organization, right? About 10 years after. But I went there and I asked the question, and they told me, and the question I framed, okay, if someone wants to become an architect here in Canada, what do they have to do? So they gave me all the referrals and references, and I looked at it and I told myself, I had the desire that I want to become an architect here, practicing as an architect. And that desire was strong enough, for me to follow up on any information that I was given. I was given those information and I got into that. And it turns out that, of course, for you to become a registered architect here is actually a very, very tough, thing to do. People graduate from schools of architecture and still not yet registered as architects because, when I first joined one of the firms I was working with here, there were people in that firm that for more than 10, 15 years, they've been trying to do the registration exams and couldn't. But because I had the desire motivated me. Within the first few months that I got in, I started doing my exam and I passed it. And I realized that I had a different problem on my hands. I had a different problem because the rates, because of the kind of desire that I have, the rate at which I was going about what I was doing was becoming a problem for me in the firm because I realized that, the perception in the firm was this is difficult, you can't do it, no one can do it. And then here comes someone from nowhere, trying to do that. So that's really a very interesting experience. And by the way, what I say to people is our destination and station in life is often limited, by the scope of our desire, right? When you limit yourself, when I was told that, oh, they don't build, things, or they don't, accept people. If you limit yourself to that, that's exactly what it's going to be. So with respect, to that, I always say that, the scope, your imagination, what you want for yourself, it's all subjective. You have to determine exactly, what you want to do. And when I talk about desire, I'm definitely not referring to the one associated with seduction. And we do have a lot of that in architecture. For instance, what I'm showing there is the Marilyn Monroe, towers in Mississauga. And it was actually based on Marilyn Monroe, and the whole idea was, it was based on that other type of desire that, that is not what I'm talking about. So the second value that architecture taught me is the value of being dedicated and committed to whatever projects, that I'm into. It takes dedication to stay the course. It takes dedication, to achieve a lot of things. I used to have a friend that talks about dedication from the point of loyalty and the integrity to perform. So when you're dedicated to what you do, right? It's a conversation with yourself and with the world. So when you have integrity to perform, integrity is actually a way of telling yourself the truth. Honesty is what you tell to others. Integrity is the truth that you say to yourself. And that's actually a quote by Spencer Johnson, is an author who is always who really defined that, for me in a way that I could relate to. Most times, the things you do in your quiet time, in your closet, your integrity is what speaks. So when you're dealing with others, then it's a different, situation. So when we do things, in order for you to achieve what you want to achieve in architecture, is not a 9 to 5 kind of affair. You don't achieve it, from 9 to 5, keeping that kind of schedule. It involves, a lot. Remember all the tankless time and long hours, and ungodly hours that one has to keep. That my wife was trying to counsel my son about. For me, that came to light when I remember when I was working on a project for that was funded by the governments of Botswana and the United States of America, and that project was really very exciting. It was a very high-profile project. It was a project that, the schedule for that project was not determined necessarily by the level of effort that is required to do the job, but it was determined from a very political point of view, because it needed to be achieved, So it was the schedule and the deadline were determined in Washington, D.C. and also in Gaborone. And during this time, because of dedication and commitment, one of the things I told myself is this kind of project is once in a lifetime career for people. So I'll probably give it whatever it takes. But giving it whatever it takes means that, there's a lot of challenges that you're going to go through in meeting that. But it took a lot of dedication until one day I was being reminded, by my wife, that why do you kill yourself on a project that some of your colleagues are not necessarily, spending the same kind of time and effort? And that question was really it triggered a lot of things. That question really triggered a lot of things. And what it triggered that I saw was more of, okay, yes, there are people that are actually bearing the grunt of the kind of dedication that you're putting into this whole thing. But I told her something that really made, the difference. And it is that I wasn't actually working for that, to make my, I wasn't necessarily working, to make my colleagues, to be happy, or I wasn't working for my managing director at that time, or I wasn't working for, all the people, that were involved. But I was working for myself. I saw it as an opportunity to build yourself. I saw it as an opportunity to actually do something, that's worth, doing. So when you are dedicated and you are passionately committed to successfully achieving something, there will always be distractions. And those distractions always come from places that you least expect. So, on the high profile project I talked about, I referred to earlier, was such that because of the level of dedication that I put into it, it was so infectious that whenever the president of Botswana, Festus Pokai, whenever he's wanting to come to the project, they bypass my managing director and they call me directly. Whenever the senators or a number of top government officials from the U.S. government, the ambassador and everyone is coming, they come directly to me to take them on tour. And it's kind of interesting that even up till last year when my wife and myself visited Botswana, the project is still a touch point. That the picture that you saw there, that was Festus Mohai, the president, gave us a surprise, launch visit. Now this is like 12 years after the project. That project was still a touch point because it's actually one of the projects that was very important to Festus Mohai. The point about this is not necessarily, the fact that, we had the opportunity of having a sumptuous lunch, with the president, but it's about the fact that when you are dedicated to something, right, it doesn't happen overnight. You are creating a long-lasting relationship that could be very beneficial in determining the outcome of how successful you are going to be, or how things are going to turn out to be. So as human beings, I actually do believe that we are pathologically and biologically wired to grow or die. If you don't grow, you die. So the value of dedication will help you learn the need to grow and be successful. And when you learn, to be, to become better at what you do, right? You will definitely stay alive, and grow. But the key thing, that I found out about learning is when the learning is self-directed, it becomes very more meaningful. So I would urge everyone that, if it's an imposed kind of learning that is imposed on everyone, it becomes a problem. However, if it's self-directed, chances are that you may have to, you get a lot out of it, because through learning, we equip ourselves to add value to other people's lives. When you learn, when you give yourself that opportunity, you are able to add values, to people's lives. And I've also learned, something through dedication, through commitment. One of the things I learned, is that the quality of your life is directly proportional to your capacity to add value to other people's lives. If you do not have that ability to add value to other people's lives, so let me put it this way: as immigrants and also people that are new to any society, one of your first challenge when you're looking for a job is you do not have Canadian experience, or you do not have this experience. And that's rightly so, because if I'm running a business, the first thing I want is I want that employee to be making money for me, not necessarily for me to spend time and effort. Very few employers will probably want to invest in new employees that they do not know or understand. So you have to make yourself to be very, very attractive, right? By investing in yourself, by having that dedication and commitment, you are actually investing in yourself. You are increasing your capacity to be able to add value to someone else, whether it's to an employer or to somebody else. But do not see your hard work, just like Stephen Mendel was talking about hard work, do not see your hard work or dedication as something that is self-imposed because you want to do something else or you want to get something. But it's a way of you adding capacity, to is a way of you expanding your capacity to add value to other people's life. And I think that's something that really, really, helped me, a lot in my sojourn, as I go through things. So through dedication and that is inspired by learning, we're able to make the impossible to be possible. And at the same time also, change our state from a state of being unable to do something to a state of being able. I've also learned that, through the work and dedication, that we do, we're able to steer ourselves to success. When you are dedicated to what you do, you steer yourself, to success. And I've seen this, at play a lot in my life. I have numerous examples that I can share in terms of whether is working on a very simple residential project or very complex, projects, institutional project. And the question is, how is it possible? How is it possible that just going through all those valleys, that I talked about, how is it possible that they will steer one to success? I thought, instead of boring you with some, architectural thing, I'll probably give you other example. So many of us will probably be familiar with, a guy called Muhammad Ali, and his the kind of things he did. So in 1971, undefeated Muhammad Ali faced heavyweight champion Joe Frazier in what they call fight of the century at that time. Now, without going into the details, for a lot of people that know the history of Muhammad Ali, he was undefeated because, he never had the opportunity of really, fighting, to defend his belt because of his involvement in civil rights and all that. So he lost his license to fight and everything. Anyway, in 1971, he was able to, they were able to kind of organize that. And after a full 15 rounds of fighting, Frazier defeated Muhammad Ali. That was really unthinkable. And then in 1973, Muhammad Ali faced a guy called Ken Norton. And Ken Norton, just like Frazier did a couple of years before, right? After about 12 rounds, in fact, Ken Norton not only defeated Muhammad Ali, but broke his jaw, right, in the fight in 1973. And now, this was, Muhammad Ali puts it at the back of your mind that he's the undefeated, boxing champion. So now entered the ring a guy called Judge Foreman. This was a guy that actually, put all sorts of fears in anyone that fought for a living during that time, because he was this 6 foot, very, very dangerous 6 foot, 220 pounds machine that struck terror on everyone's mind. So, just to give a little bit of context, when Frazier, the first man that beat Ali, when he faced Judge Foreman, right? Judge Foreman knocked him down 6 times before the referee just stopped the fight, right? And then Ken Norton, the second guy that broke Ali's jaw, right? Judge Foreman did the same thing, right? So when the Rumble in the Jungle was announced in 1974, the whole world of boxing was on edge. The reason why they were on edge was because the two people that Judge Foreman, right, met, that Ali, they all defeated Muhammad Ali. So everyone thought that, bringing in Muhammad Ali, and Judge Foreman, oh, that's going to be the end of, Muhammad Ali. Even in Muhammad Ali's dressing room, when his people were kind of getting him ready, the entire dressing room was so quiet, as if it was a funeral yard. And of course, even Muhammad Ali had to ask and say, why are you all quiet? Obviously, they were scared for his life, right? So in the beginning of the first round, Ali traded punches. Soon, however, he knows that, his punches, he cannot go toe to toe, right, with Muhammad Ali. And 3 minutes later, the bell rang. And immediately the bell rang, Ali went to his corner, and his mind racing. He realized he has just seen the punishing powers of, Judge Foreman's punches. And he just knew that, there's no way I can defeat this guy. I can't go toe to toe, with him. So, eventually, you know, while the fight, was going, when they started, before that, while the fight was going on, people noticed that, Judge Foreman, made a change, right? In what he was doing. And in the eighth round of the fight, Ali saw there was a sliver of opportunity, and in an instant, Ali, did the impossible, right? He knocks out Judge Foreman. Now, I guess the question is, how did he do it? Ali definitely did not use his fists, and his power and his energy to defeat, Muhammad Ali. In fact, later he will recall he tagged, his tactics there called the rope-a-dope, tactics that he used for that fight. And what it was is the whole idea was he will just keep going towards the ring, just to tire Muhammad Ali. But people thought that was actually what gave that to him. People by the ringside will later recall that during the fight, Ali was always taunting Judge Foreman, right? That you must not have a left hand, right, to fight, because Judge Foreman was always using right hand. And because Ali was getting the beating, on his left arm, right, from Judge Foreman's right punch, he needed to do something to get that away. So when he started taunting, Judge Foreman made a change, started using his left hand. So that gave Ali the opportunity to withstand the whole thing. That little change, right, that Judge Foreman did, right, gave Ali the title. And, I can imagine the question in everyone's mind that what has this got to do, this detour through sports, what has it got to do with, some of the values and things that, architecture taught me? Well, Terry O'Reilly, he's a Canadian advertisement guru. He has a program on CBC called the, Age of Persuasion, Under the Influence, and all that. He actually used this story of Muhammad Ali to talk about one of the episodes of his program, the subtle art of nudging. And I really found that, to be quite interesting, that the whole thing, about, how nudging is being used in schools and by governments and a number of these people to actually steer us, in making positive changes, steering us in the right direction, to make positive changes in our lives. With those whispers in Ali's ears, Ali nudged Foreman, right, to make a small change that ended, the heavyweight, boxing, title. So, like Muhammad Ali did in 1974, everyone can actually benefit from the use of power of their own whispers to steer us or steer themselves, right, to positive outcome through dedication and a lot of the values that, has been identified, throughout, the day, today. What Ali did was to use the power of nudging, right? To wrestle victory from the hands of one of the most powerful human beings, at that time. Someone that was physically stronger than him. And that was actually a symbol, or let me rephrase it in another way. What Ali did is actually a reflection of someone that is committed, someone that is dedicated, to what they do. And when you use that dedication, it happens. So to give you an idea of nudging, I know I'm kind of going a little bit deep into some of this talk. Nudging is extensively used in marketing, today. You may not know it, but it's used in marketing. So I remember Terry O'Reilly, talking about, a store in Virginia, for instance, just to give you an instance, where the shopping cart, the grocery cart, was divided, right, into two. They had a yellow, tape that divided, the grocery cart, and on that yellow tape, it has a sign, that says, put fruit and vegetables in the front of the cart, and other products at the back. When shoppers saw how little, the fruit and veg that they bought, somehow they feel guilty, and then they go back and start filling their, their cart with that, just because of, that nudge. So the store actually saw about 102% increase in the the purchase of fruit and vegetables. Now, the interesting thing about that research in Virginia was that it did not necessarily increase the amount of money that people spend, but it changed the pattern, the habits, of people that were involved in it. So, that's that little, yellow tape that they had in there was the nudge, that was used to steer people in the right, direction. Terry also recounted the story of, there's this airport in Amsterdam, Schiphol Airport actually, to be precise, in Holland, where, they wanted to solve the persistent problem of overspraying, in the men's, washroom. And because of the overspraying, that was happening in the urinals, they came up with, they etched the image of a housefly into the urinals. And of course, because men likes to spray and aim, right? That solved the problem of overspraying. So the housefly that you see there was actually a nudge, that was used. And that nudge, it meant that they didn't have to overspray the floor, and it means they didn't have to be cleaning that washroom constantly, and that kind of reduced how much money they spent on that. So little things like just having that housefly was, was a nudge, that kind of changed, people's, habit. So talking about, that making good decision is, through nudging is remarkably subtle. It's the same thing about, the kind of things that we do in our life. In fact, nudging is not anything new. For instance, like the British Prime Minister, Cameron, actually had, until some few weeks, some few months ago, had a group called the BIT, the Behavioral Insight Team. It's called the Nudge. Also, President Obama also had his own Nudge team, right? There's a lot of things that they do with the nudges. Nudge, for instance, where it's really very exciting. How things. What I see is, I see things like having the desire, having the dedication to do things. I see it as a nudge, that will actually nudge people in the right direction. It's very subtle. It's almost unnoticeable. But when you have that, right, chances are that the outcome will be different. The third, value that I would like to talk about that, architecture taught me is the value of discipline. And, discipline, as far as I'm concerned, of course, has different, interpretation, has different permutation, has different, way people look at it. But it's synonymous to self-control. Discipline is synonymous to self-control, and is also something that spurs motivation in people. Without discipline, it's always, very difficult to achieve success. I know that. It's discipline that will allow you to be consistent in something that you do. It's discipline that will allow you, to really see beyond, just the present, to be able to, subject yourself to what it takes, to be able to achieve that. So this is one of the reasons why we plan. And just like I'm sure you heard Mr. Heath talks about that, when you fail to plan, you've actually planned to fail. And discipline is that important element that will, allow you, to stick to your plan or get things done. So, definitely I do know that in the absence of discipline, ineptitude comes in. Other kind of things comes in. And while this presentation is not about failures, and all that, I thought it's really very important to understand why we fail. There is, I was reading a book recently by Atul Gawande. It's called the Checklist Manifesto. Very interesting book, that was written. Atul Gawande was worked with the World Health Organization. He's a surgeon, in the US, and got his inspiration actually from architecture, going to architecture and the aviation industry, trying to study how do they do all these complex things. You're building a plane as complex as it is, how come they're able to do it, but yet we're not able to do some things that are very simple, within the hospital. And came to the site, looked at how architects and engineers, work, have all this complex schedule, and before you know it, we come up with all this very complex high-rise structure. How do they do it? How come it doesn't fail? How come just, dealing with, people one at a time, they are unable to actually achieve that? And he came to the conclusion that, checklist is actually something that is very important. Anyway, Atul Gawande actually, looked at, some of the, went into all this research and looked at some of the philosophers that, had some theories about why we fail. And I thought that's background that he went into was really very interesting. And he drew on the work of two philosophers, one called Samuel Gorovitz, and then Alasdair MacIntyre. Those two philosophers, actually came with what I thought was really very interesting. There are two simple reasons why we fail. One is ignorance, and the second one is ineptitude. Fortunately, we live in a world right now where information abounds everywhere. So, if you're still in ignorance, you have a problem because there is information everywhere. However, if you lack discipline, to carry you through, ignorance will still be a factor. So we now live in a world, right now where we are bombarded with a lot of information. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of things, around you. But just lacking the discipline will let you not to even get near to all those, and educate yourself. But the major problem that the world has, right now is actually the problem of ineptitude. And ineptitude, what it means is just failure to apply the knowledge that we know. That's ineptitude. Where ignorance is absence of, knowledge, right? Ineptitude is your failure to apply the knowledge that you know. So all the knowledge and everything that has been taught, here this evening that, Pastor Bod and the rest have done, your failure to apply that, right, is simply ineptitude. And the reason why ineptitude happens is because of that lack of discipline, that gets people there. So, through discipline, we can actually put ignorance at bay. And I do believe that. And that's the difference, between, burning, the late night lamps, to study versus deciding, oh, I can't go through all this anymore. I just, have to sleep. I still remember, usually, I get requests for interviews, and there's always a very persistent, pattern. And one of these pattern is people, wanting to know, how come, I'm sure they probably love to hear the story of, from grass to riches, how you came, as an immigrant, you came with a boat, and, all those very interesting, story. I still remember breakfast television, carrying one of those things on diversity, and they wanted me to talk about how come, talk about something terrible that has ever happened to you, and all that. And I said, well, I really don't have, some of those stories, right? And I can't start fabricating one right now, but that does not mean that I do not have struggle. I never had struggle, in my life. And some of the experiences I went through, we saw that, you probably, before you got to the age of 27, you had lived in many cities and all that. Don't you think that was a struggle? You didn't have your friends? Well, it's difficult because someone is calling it difficult, and we never saw it as difficult, right? So when you tag something, to be difficult, right, it becomes difficult, right? At the time, I saw a lot of opportunities. I still remember, at the time that I got admission, to the university to study architecture, I was 16. At that time, my dad retired, and at the year that he retired, I got the admission. It was difficult even paying the school fees. we had to go borrow the money from a taxi driver that was living, next to us. Now, put it in context. My dad was a, middle manager in UTC, and, goes to the office, dressed very well, and you have a taxi driver that, the society at that time looks as, people that are kind of very poor. And, it took that taxi driver to actually be the one to actually borrow us, that money, like a seed money, to pay the fees, and all that. And for me, it was more like, that's a blessing. We never saw that as something that was terrible. At that time also, right, after my dad retired, he went into farming. Even before he retired, he loved farming. Farming was a hobby, and all that. My mom was running a restaurant or a cafeteria, and that meant that we have to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, to get things done. Those were not sufferings. Those were the kind of things that actually built, the kind of character that, you all do have. So I went into all these, to just give an idea of, all those three things: desire, dedication, discipline, very important. But if we know all that, then why does success still elude, a lot of us? The reason is very simple, right? As human beings, I mean, one way, we can solve that is to go into behavioral economics, right? Behavioral economics, several studies have actually shown that as human beings, we are irrational. It doesn't matter how you think that you're rational, we are all irrational. Given the choice, every time, given the choice, even when presented with the right choices, we will always make irrational decisions. That's the way, it is. We're biologically wired for that. And so considering these irrational tendencies, right, making poor decision is definitely something that, we're prone to. So as the saying goes, if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten. It's as simple as that, right? So what that means is, maybe there needs to be a change of strategy if you are going through a particular kind of path or pattern, that you're doing things and you're not seeing changes, right? And I will say this: life is a mastery, is a game of mastery. So your desire, dedication, and discipline, provides you with a key, that can unlock all those things, for you. Those are some of the lessons that, I learned. And because we are creatures of habit, desire, dedication, and discipline, when applied and put into practice, has made a big difference in my life. I can give you a lot of examples, on that. And it also made me to actually understand what Aristotle meant, that, we are repeatedly what we do. Excellence is then not an act, right? But, but a habit. So if you do things and you do things well every day, that's how you attain excellence. It becomes a habit. And those values also enabled me to actually understand what Archimedes meant when he says, give me a place to stand, give me a lever and a place to stand, I shall move the world. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Focusing on architecture, I have a friend of mine who recently graduated architecture master's program in Germany. She's considering moving to Canada. Is this one of those courses where it's easily transferable, or if she comes here, might she find it difficult, or will she need to go to more schooling to be recognized here?
No, I think in terms, is she graduated already? Like you said, is she practicing in Germany?
She hasn't. She just graduated a few weeks ago.
So there are a lot of information, online in terms of after graduating, you have to go through internship, and you have to, get registered through the regulatory, bodies. So if, say for instance, if you're coming to Alberta, the Alberta Association of Architects, is the regulatory body that is empowered, by the Architects Act to do that. So you go through the internship, do the registration examinations, and then, obviously do the internship, and then you become registered. Having said that, there is a lot of information, in there. You don't necessarily have to go to school to do other courses or whatever. The key thing is just to focus on your registration exam and internship, and of course getting the experience. So there are tons of resources. You can actually go onto the RAIC.org website, or depending on which jurisdiction she's going into. Yeah.
My question is, can you give us an example of those, you talked about power of whispers.
Sorry?
The
Okay,
power,
yeah.
can you give us an example of everyday whispers? Or
Well, it all depends on organization. Like the example that the example that I gave in that Terry O'Reilly talks about, or okay, let's talk about governments, for instance, right? When we talk about the power of whispers, that's another way of describing what I mean by nudging. So in the UK, for instance, right, there was a time that they found out that people were not paying their fines. People were not paying, when they give them traffic fines, they were not paying. So what the office of the BIT did was, they changed the way they send, those information to people. So one of the small change, that they did was to actually include the picture of, the vehicle, that was done. And then immediately people see that, right, from it, the rate at which they pay their fine increased. Or people that were owing taxes, for instance, right, when they owe taxes, the rate at which they go to pay back their taxes, wasn't that much. So they started writing handwritten letters, to them. Immediately people saw handwritten letter, the response was immediate. Now, could it be because that they think that, Big Brother is watching them, or no one knows, but that handwritten letter is the nudge, is this, quiet whisper that was, that they whispered in people to take action. Now, the key thing about nudging is, using subtle, ways of doing things to steer people in the right, direction. That's definitely what. So every day, you go. There's a lot of things around you that is actually nudging you and steering you to the right direction. There is a reason why there are certain things, you just see certain things, whether it's a sign or some things that are put in front of you. There are reasons why they are there sometimes. Without them being there, for instance, you will probably make a different decision. So say for instance, if you wake up and you tell yourself that I'll do a checklist of things to do every day, that before I go out today, I'm going to things to do. You can tell yourself that I'm going to create a things to do list, right? But just having, that things to do notepad, just staring at you, could just be the nudge that you need to always write, things to do. And that things to do that you're writing can nudge you, to make, so it's just all over you. It's everywhere. Marketing, everyone, uses that. Sometimes it's about how you, what you emphasize, because the way an option is presented, also determine, how people, we act on it. So talking about everyday things, your career, is the decision you make, going to school or not going to school, going to study or not going to study. There's all sorts of nudges, around you that is nudging you to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, with all those nudge, if you don't have the desire and you've not developed the desire, and you are not dedicated to it, and you lack the discipline, chances are that those nudges will just be null and void. But when you add all those three values and all those three elements, I found out that they actually work and always work for me. Yeah. So I don't know if I asked, maybe there's a follow-up question. Yeah. Yeah, well, sometimes you can create, nothing stops you from creating the nudges, but usually people that create nudge, right, they're creating it to achieve something else. So say for instance, if you run a business, for instance, and you really want to bring in traffic, to people. Now you have to remember that nudges is about changing people's behavior, right? Changing people's behavior. So putting a sign, somewhere, for instance, is just an obvious nudge, to say, go there. There is something, happening. That's an obvious nudge. But there's some very quiet nudge, for instance, that you don't necessarily see. So how will you? The example of the shopping carts, right? Anyone, doing that, it's happening in your subliminal, right? You don't necessarily realize that, oh, I really feel ashamed that I'm not buying enough fruit and vegetable. So there are just a lot of examples like that, that when you look at the sum totality of things around you, right, you find out that there are a lot of nudges, around you, and it's changing. The way they market things to you, the way you deal with government offices, you walk into a place. If you've ever been to IKEA, for instance, that's a very good example of nudge, right? How they nudge you, they want you to go in certain kind of direction, right? And so even in your personal life also, you can create all those nudges, and yeah.
I have a question. Before I ask the question, I want to say a very big thank you for this presentation. I've learned a lot. My question has to do with meeting the right people and asking the right questions. Most of the time, I for one, I do meet people, but I find it difficult to know what questions to ask them as it relates to my profession. I'm into human resources and development, and I intend being a consultant later on in life. It's part of my short-term goals. I want to ask, do you have an idea, or can you suggest what are the basics one needs to know when you meet people that matters? Like you said now, most people media, you ask you about how were you able to cope as an immigrant. I don't think that will really help in terms of being successful or getting to the height we really want to attain. So what do you suggest to me as a person, based as in what questions do I need to ask and what area do I need to push into to really get answers?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and also very difficult question, to answer just like that. But one thing I will say is this: being able to develop yourself, and do a lot of self-directed learning, right, will direct you to a number of things. So one of the things I always encourage people is improve your soft skills. And what are the things that we call soft skills? Soft skills is your ability to actually have, very, simple everyday conversation, for instance, and also have very difficult conversation without necessarily losing your cool or without necessarily losing things. Now, in order for you to ask the right questions, the solution is, I always get that from, the motto of Boy Scout: be prepared. So when you talk about research, the more you know about a subject and the more you know about an organization, the more you know you're directed towards certain ways of asking certain questions that are not clear to you. Now, that may not necessarily be obvious, but if you actually read books and resources on, things like soft skills, how to have difficult, conversation, for instance, how to use the power of question, for instance, as a way of, diffusing situation, sometimes it helps. So I will really emphasize on the soft skills, the social skills. This is a fact. The fact of life is this. I don't know if anyone has actually read some of these books, the books about the outliers, for instance, right? Or books like Bling. I don't know if you know there's a book called Bling, right? The decision, that people make happen within seconds when they meet you, right? All the work that you do years before sometimes, just gets you ready and prepared for that 2 minutes or 2 seconds encounter. What I do say to people generally is, it is really very important that every experience that you go through, the people that you ask questions that you don't necessarily get the right answer, those are actually stepping stones, that you can step towards to be able to build and ask those right questions. Now, in terms of how to frame questions, how to do all that, boils down to your ability to actually communicate effectively. there is actually a difference between being an orator and being a good communicator. Those are two different things. I think when you're able to communicate, so communication means you are actually, using all the SMART principle. You are really very specific in what you ask or what you say. You have, it's measurable, it's achievable. All those SMART principles that you talk about. At the end of the day, if you communicate, properly, and that communication may not be in terms of questions. It may not be in terms of you wanting to have something. It's probably all about connection, right? Bringing about your passion. So you walk into a place, you're talking about your HR wherever. How do you make your passion come out? How do you make your passion really show? And how you make your passion show is a product of your knowledge, is a product of what you know, is a product of your personality. If you know your personality, that you are in a profession where your personality does not allow you, to do certain things, or is an impediment, right? You work on that aspect of you. So there are different ways of actually answering your question, but what I will encourage is personal development, always very important. Don't be shy of rejection. You go to an interview or you have a business encounter with someone and you didn't make it, that's okay. Use the opportunity to ask, do what they call debriefing. Ask for debriefing. Next time, yes, that deal, what you wanted wasn't successful. Nothing stops you from, taking that phone and making the call to say, just for my own personal development, I would really like to know what is it that I should have done a little bit different or better, some of that. So there are different ways. Don't just be shy of, rejection or failure, anything, but see that as a stepping stone. My friend is always reminding me that, Faraday, when he did a lot of, his experiment, there's a particular experiment, an invention that he did, that he had to go, he failed almost 200 and something times. And when they asked him about his failure, at the end of the day, when he got it right, he said, well, those failures were actually the stepping stone that he needed to step through to get to where he is. There will definitely be all that, but the key thing is never to be afraid making that move or making that step or asking the question. I will say this flat out. First and foremost, I do believe that as a visible minority, your challenges are of a different kind from someone else that is not from a visible minority. And every time, your attitude in dealing with that. So when I'm coming to meet with you, Jonathan, for instance, I already have at the back of my mind, right, what I think about you. And what I have at the back of my mind is a sum total of all the biases, the stereotype, the knowledge, the information, the everything that I have, right, that has a way of actually triggering, am I going to make something out of it? Do I trust? Do I not trust? It's natural. It's human. We're biologically wired for that. But the onus is on you to actually demonstrate that I am different. The onus is on you to actually demonstrate that, you know what? I think I'm what you're looking for. And in order for you to come to that realization that I'm what you're looking for, it means that you've probably done a lot of research. You know more about the person. So do not go into a meeting without being prepared. That's the mistake people do. People go into meetings, for instance. Now, when I say meetings, I don't necessarily mean formal meeting. I'm having a meeting with Pastor Bud. In fact, he impressed me when he called me when we first met. We've been communicating a lot through the email. And I was just walking by the city center one day, and someone stopped me and said, "Are you Sam?" I said, "Yes." And so, it was kind of interesting, he doing your research before you meet people, for instance, makes the job easy. You're going to meet an HR consultant, wherever. Knowing more about what they do in the organization is important. There's what they call what is in it for me that is really very important in everything. When you go in there, you make it about them, right? You're also helping yourself. So if if someone actually understands that you really know about the organization, you're interested in the organization, and all that, there's a chance that it will rub back on you. I don't know if I have answered your question. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. I just, first of all, I want to point out something in response to the question about nudges.
Yes.
Sister was asking what are the
Every day.
examples of
Yeah.
nudges. In the presentation, Mr. Sam actually pointed out that in Psalm 23, that when he came to Canada, remember the scripture, Psalm 23?
That's a
Right.
nudge. That's a good one.
Nudge. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
That's a nudge. It steered him in a different direction. Not just thinking as an immigrant, but as someone that, the whole earth belongs to him. And he just needs to, keep at it. So that's an example of a nudge. Now, question about nudge. When you have a nudge and it steers you in a particular direction, and of course there are other external nudges, like you pointed out in the advertisement and things like that. At what point does your own nudge actually override other nudges, or do we get to some point where we say, oh, okay, it's not as it's not like how it appears, like, oh, it's not actually, the whole world is not it's not a lot. Is it, do you get what I mean? Like, at what point do you give in to other nudges to say, okay, maybe those other nudges might help you in achieving your goal? Or maybe, like you mentioned about soft skills, right? Maybe you have your own mindset, you have your own way of doing things, came from a different culture and things like that, your own different way of communication, etc. And then you come in, oh, I have a nudge, Psalm 23, the whole earth belongs to the world, and to me, right? And then you require soft skill to communicate. At what point do you see it in, as in, to just give away your own nudge, to embrace other nudges in order to achieve your goal? Or is it actually a good thing to do?
The good thing there is that you don't have to give up a nudge or take over a nudge or wherever. No.
Okay.
That's the beauty about nudge. You are in control, right? There can be a nudge on that that's just next to you. You have a choice to ignore it. You don't necessarily have to go with it. That's the beauty about nudge. And I can go, even physically, I can go nudge, Pastor Bud, on the shoulder, to do, things. There are a lot of critics, about, nudge. There's this Professor Usman, right, from Queen Mary University in London, that is a fierce critic of nudging, especially when nudges are used by governments, because, you have no control and all that, and there's the ethical, part of it. But the key thing there is that you also have, as a government, for instance, you have ethical responsibility to steer people in the right direction. How you make them. So a very good example, a nudge, when you get your credit card, bills, for instance, government came up with a rule that they need to really show you how long it's going to take you to finish paying the debt if you keep paying the minimum payment. For instance, that in itself is actually a nudge, for instance, to steer you in the right direction and say, oh my God, if I keep paying this minimum, payment, it means for the next 32 years, I'm going to be in debt, and all that. That in itself is a nudge. So having said that, I like that example of how you characterize, Psalm 23 as a nudge. And where that came for me was when I first came to a number of places, I find out that, most people from, Africans in diaspora, a lot of them actually have this belief, that I'm just here temporarily. So because of that mindset of being here temporarily, they fail to take advantage of all the opportunities, that, they do have. And because of, I'm here temporarily, that mindset, even that temporary, 10 years, 50 years, they'll still be there. I'll give you an example. Came to, Canada in 2003, and everyone I spoke to told me that you will never be able to buy a house, get get a mortgage, immediately. You know what? That's what everyone believed. There is no one single person, that ever told me that that was possible. However, I had a friend in Calgary who used to live in Vancouver, right? And I used to work with him, many years ago. And he moved from Vancouver in 2001 or thereabouts, to Calgary. So he wanted, he kind of encouraged us, oh, if you come, you should try and, buy a house immediately and all that. So before coming, like I said, I tend to do a lot of research, on certain things, no matter how small it is. And research, I always say to people, if I was in school, now in this day and age, right? I'll probably, I still remember how you go to the library, you use the catalog, you have to order books and all that. All the information is at your fingertip right now. It's about learning the skills on how to research. So one of the things that I did research was, just equip yourself with as much information. So before coming to Canada, I don't know whether it worked or it didn't work. The good thing there is that when you achieve certain success or you do certain things, it's always very difficult for you to actually know exactly which of them did work. So I got a letter of reference from my insurance company in Botswana. I got a letter from my banks in Botswana. I got a letter, of reference from all these organizations. So when I came, just to give you an example, because you need to have a minimum amount of money, when you're immigrating, that Canada immigration insisted that you must have like, 10,000 for one person and every dependent has to have. So when we first came, put in my money in CIBC, right? Had a lot of cash in there. Went to CIBC, asked for mortgage, asked for wherever. They turned it down. No. Well, that didn't deter me, right? Went to TD, right? And then TD, by the way, didn't even know whether I had a dime to my name, or not. CIBC that saw all the money that you have said no to me. But TD, this person in TD were ready to do the deal. So they said, oh, do you have, how can you demonstrate, your credit, So I had letters from my banks in Botswana, South Africa, and all that. Gave it to them. Within the first month that we were here, I got a mortgage, right? To buy a house. Like when I tell people that was what happened, they say, oh no, that can be you've been here, you have lots of money, or no, it's still the CHN, the CMHC, mortgage that everyone had. Put 5% down. So the money that we brought in, we put 5% down, and we bought the house. We weren't looking for, all we wanted was we just wanted a house, and we just bought this house. At that time it was about 150 something thousand, and so 5% of that, right, was really quite affordable. And so it was kind of interesting, that we didn't even. So when I say if you apply your mind to anything, anything is possible. It takes you from that, state of impossible to state of, being possible and unable to be unable. I tell people that they say, oh, you are just lucky. Could be, right? But you do not discount, right, the importance of actually doing research, and also, making yourself, trying to put yourself in the position of who is going to be attending to that request, that application. How will you be able to convince him or convince her that you're really, prepared for that? So there's really lots of examples like that, that I believe. And I've done a lot of mistakes too. I still have a lot of mistakes, that I've done, that I never regretted, because those mistakes, were things that really opened my eyes that next time if I have the opportunity, which may never come, again, I will do it differently. But when you do have the opportunity, you're able to do things, differently. Any more questions? Sure. Okay. Yeah, Psalm 24. Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, all I can say is thank you very much, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. How many of you were blessed by what we did today? If we invite you again, would you come? Would you come? Yes, please. Everybody needs this. And one of the things I tell myself is, if I got this type of things earlier, I think I would have done even much better. You understand me? The conference continues tomorrow. Mr. Are you going to come tomorrow? Awesome. We start at 10, and we try to finish by before 12. Yeah, so it would be nice to have you around. So, feel free to come also. You can hang out with these ones and talk. And tomorrow, please, one of the things I've learned, it's not because they told me anything. I love to buy the time of the people I learn from. And what do I mean by that? I want to learn from you. Can I take you for lunch? It's not because I want to go to lunch. It's because I want to learn from you. You understand it? It's one of the things that we need to do. Learn from people, buy their time, entertain them, honor them, and tomorrow we'll be doing that. Prepare an offering. It's not because we need your money. No, you understand me? I give to people who bless me. That's just it. It's just a principle. You understand me? If you must, I can't count the number of people that are richer, wealthier, that I just say, can I bless you with this? It's not because they don't have it. It's because there is something I'm tapping into. I'm honoring them. You understand me? And we'll be doing that tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming. Now let's put our hands together for God and let's rise up. We're going to close right now. Brother Yuta, good job. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much, Brother Sheo. I know a number of people could not wait behind. The people that are not here today, they really, really missed. Please join your hands with the hands of your neighbor as we share the grace together. Let's share the grace together. Are we ready? 1 to go. Grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, God, and the sweet fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Now look at your neighbor, eyeball to eyeball, to the person. Surely God's goodness shall follow you. Now look at somebody else, and you, and somebody else, and you, and you, and you, all the days of your lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. And somebody say, thank you so much for coming. The Lord bless you. We hope to see you tomorrow at 10. Brian, please wait behind. I would like to see you. Thank you so much, everybody.